Chapter 126, Sanctuary, is worthy of the epoch-making invention of the pre-war Federation. After the power armor and a Gatling machine gun killed a few leading marauders, those marauding marauders quickly dispersed as birds and beasts. However, the gunfire of the fierce exchange of fire just now attracted uninvited guests. A deathclaw that was more than 3 meters and 4 meters high was attracted by this intense gunshot. He rushed out from the end of the road and then shot a predator a few meters away with one paw. Ryan saw that the upper body of the predator was deformed directly by the shot, and then fell on the road motionless. "It looks like it's hanging." Ryan took a breath, and it seemed that the deathclaws were more powerful than imagined. Fortunately, this time I was not fighting alone. Just thinking about this, Knight next to him jumped off the roof in power armor. Ryan looked at this scene in amazement, and the man who guarded his family was the most terrifying. In order to keep the deathclaws out of the museum, Knight chose to leave the safe rooftop to the ground and deathclaws just in front. No way. Ryan released a slow descent on himself and jumped down afterwards. When he jumped on the street, he found that Deathclaw had been completely attracted by Knight. Seeing that Ryan had a magical move, he grabbed himself with a hook and climbed up to the outer wall on the second floor of the street, before aiming at the Deathclaw to release the coma. Obviously, the magic resistance of Deathclaw is very low. If Ryan used a harmful spell, Deathclaw can still carry it with his strong vitality, but it does not seem to have much resistance to this spell against the soul. After the red light of the coma spell hit the Deathclaw, the action of the Deathclaw immediately stopped. And Knight, who had experienced a brutal war, seized this opportunity to shoot continuously at the crucial point of Deathclaw. The Deathclaw was awakened by the pain of the attack, and the claw shot the power armor in front of him to the side and screamed. Lion added another coma spell, but this time the Deathclaws in the hyperactive state are immune to this spell. No wonder Deathclaws can become the top of the waste soil biological chain, because it has a strong body and soul, and Sir can have a strong body and relatively high wisdom. Although it is impossible to actively apply its own soul abilities in this non-magic world, once stimulated, its naturally powerful soul can easily resist some magic against the soul. But magic is not completely ineffective. Ryan found that as long as he hits the stun spell of the Deathclaw can be paused slightly. It can be seen that Deathclaw only eats magic with a powerful soul, and is not resistant to magic as Ran worried. The battle after entered a protracted battle. Lion continued to move quickly on the wall through the hook, and released magic to the Deathclaw to harass the action of the Deathclaw. Knight used the opportunity created by Ryan to shoot at the Deathclaw. After 7 or 8 minutes, the Deathclaw finally fell, and Knight stepped forward to remove the claw of the Deathclaw. The hardest part of this Deathclaw can make some very good cold weapons. And Ryan threw the entire Deathclaw through the space gate into the world of Plants vs. Zombies. At the same time, the body of the marauder who was killed was thrown together. I hope that there can be quickly researched plants that are aimed at this environment, otherwise many plans cannot be carried out. While praying silently, Ryan entered the museum and called out the survivors. After, the survivors decided to go to the sanctuary to build a new home. It was dark when they set off together. Fortunately, the monsters along the way were almost cleaned up when Ryan came. The rest of the scattered monsters are not the opponents of this squad fully equipped with predators. After more than half an hour, they finally got to the sanctuary. In the real world, this road is much longer than in the game. Fortunately, nothing happened along the way. After arriving at the destination, everyone was surprised to find that Bayou Mountain Villa is now completely different from the abandoned and dilapidated settlement they imagined. Imaginary broken houses, old vehicles, fallen trees and so on are completely absent. In the afternoon, dozens of robots cleaned up the rubble here. In addition, the robot also built the core energy tower that was disassembled into parts, and repaired the pumping pipeline leading to the river. At the same time, using the materials collected before the energy tower to build several wooden houses as temporary shelters. Finally, on the periphery, a large 2-person wall was built with a large number of wooden boards and concrete blocks left by the demolition. The only problem is that the energy tower is now cold because the plant is unexpected and cannot be used. I don't know what to use as a source of energy. Lean checked and found that the high-pressure steam storage tanks prepared before were almost empty, which means that it is necessary to find a way to run the energy as soon as possible. After checking all the things he brought, Ryan came to the edge of the energy tower. After a tiring day, most people found a bed in the room and fell asleep. The camp was dark. There was only a wooden house with light shining out. Ryan walked to the door of the wooden house and knocked, and the door opened. Preston stood by the door, which he had just opened. Knight and Nora were sitting at the table with 3 glasses of water. It seems that the 3 of them were discussing before. "I didn't bother you?" Ryan asked. "No, we are still discussing the militia here. If you are happy www.mtlnovel.com, we hope you can join this discussion," Preston said. "Well, what is the specific content of your discussion?" Preston told Ryan that he was probably the only militias in the Federation now, and everyone else was out of touch. So he hopes to find enough manpower to do something. "I wanted to ask Knight to ask me to do some favors. Unfortunately, he made it clear that they were busy looking for their son, and they might not have enough energy to help the militia. Nora would not fight at all. Preston shrugged somewhat helplessly. You should understand your parents' love for their children. Lane comforted Preston. It turned out that Preston stared at himself. Is there anything strange in me? Ryan asked curiously. Can you help us? Preston said excitedly. Me? I'm just a kid, Ryan said with a surprise, pointing at his nose. Not to mention that I have a lot of things to do myself. This may not have time to help you. It's okay, as long as you want. We are not babies, and we don't need other people's 24/7 care. As for age, at least nobody in the wasteland pays attention to this. Everyone will only pay attention to your ability. Now that I have spoken here, Ryan also feels that it is definitely a good thing to find allies in this doomsday world, especially the militia, whose 3 views match him, so he accepted Preston's request. Then Ryan walked out of the house with the gratitude of Preston. After chatting around with the night watchman around the fence, he returned to his house and climbed into the bed to spend the first night in the wasteland. Chapter 127, Pets and Generals. With the cultivation of energy coffee beans, the energy tower can finally resume full power operation. This also means that the strength of the Sanctuary has been turned several times. After solving all the survival problems, Preston once again put forward the proposal to rebuild the militia. Everyone expressed support this time, because now the base has enough food, clean water, after enough energy. The water purification tower is quickly built, and enough armament. A few automatic machine gun towers are installed at the door, and then on the robot equipped with many weapons. The only thing missing is people. Knight came back to visit relatives once in the past week, when he carried a lot of things with 2 double-headed cows. After staying one night, Knight hurried away with enough supplies to runestones. But Nora told Lane that Knight had investigated who was the one who robbed their children. This time it was to replenish something, and then go to the murderer that year to settle the accounts. At the same time, Nora also told Knight to tell him that the runestone is very easy to use. The only problem is that there are too few. In addition, Knight promised to help out the strongholds outside and help recruit people. It was just too slow to rely on Nate's propaganda to recruit people. At this time, Preston's plan to rebuild the militia was just in line with the current situation. According to Preston, the first stronghold in need is Shimatsu's Wang. Ryan took account and was about to leave. News came from the Wonji grocery store that the mutant dragon grass he had raised had finally ripened. Ryan opened the space door and wanted to take out the pot to see what the new plant looked like. As soon as the space door opened, a green shadow came out. Waiting for the shadow to stop in front of him, Ryan found the little snake about 1 meter long in front of him. Fortunately, Ryan and his spiritual link confirmed the identity of the little snake. This snake is a new plant cultivated by this mutant dragon grass plant. Ryan waved his wand in surprise and began to examine. After all, there was a snake in front of him, and he could not see the shadow of the plant at all. But the result of the examination surprised him. This snake is a special magic plant. It can be as big as a 1/3 snake monster, or it can be reduced to the size of an earthworm, and it can secrete a liquid that has both the toxicity and petrochemical ability of the snake monster. At the same time, the snake can be divided into dozens of avatars. As long as any one avatar survives, it will not die. Even the injury can be recovered by sunlight and water. More importantly, because it is a magic plant, so there is enough resistance to survive in this world of strong radiation. Well, you are my pet now. Although I think it is a bit strange that a Gryffindor or pet is a snake. By the way, I will give you a name now, Ryan said. While holding the snake, after taking several names, the snake finally agreed to the name Xioking. It seems that raising a pet with a high IQ may not be as simple as imagined. Xioking's arrival has become a great good news. Ryan is full of confidence in the completion of this mission. After taking a bunch of robots to Shisongzwang to take over the mission, Lane successfully cleared the predators of multiple dens. Under the strong firepower of the steam robot plus Xioking's sneak attack, both the town of Lexington and the predators of the Kuwijia assembly plant appeared vulnerable. Finally, Lioness Robot returned to the sanctuary with big and small loot. Naturally, Ryan was also given the title of General Militia by Preston, although now the entire militia organization may add up to less than 10 people. In the days after, some scattered residents went to the sanctuary to become a settler. As the population increased, the Sanctuary of Pillars also established its own industry. The second energy tower was built in the second week of Ryan's arrival in this world. At the same time, a steel plant and a small machinery plant that used waste materials from waste soil as raw materials were built. Soon the first domestically produced steam robot was put into use. At this time, the soil where the first piece of energy coffee beans are located has completely purified the radiation. Ryan used these coffee trees as a barrier and successfully planted torch stumps and sunny sunflowers in the fields. With sufficient energy, the development of the base is getting faster and faster. By the third week, with the help of a large number of robots, the militia organization had radiated its influence to most of the federal settlements and cleared many dens that harmed civilians, especially in the town of Quincy. When Clint was killed by a steam robot surrounded by a random gun, Preston was drunk that night, thinking of his companion who died in Quincy before falling down. Finally, with the help of a large number of robots and magic, Ryan defeated the Slaughter Crab Queen with 0 casualties and rebuilt the headquarters. However, there was also a lot of conflict with the Brotherhood of Steel because the Brotherhood of Steel believed that the technology they had was very dangerous, and only they could save and use these technologies. And Ryan really has nothing to say to this group of people who choke on food. It is indeed nuclear technology that caused this land to become waste www.mplnovel.com, but it was the people at the time who really made this land into waste. Technology is just a tool for humans. It is clear that the Brotherhood of Iron and Steel reversed the cause and effect. Not to mention the racist tendencies of the Brotherhood of Iron and the forced collection of food. In order to protect the kind mutants and the residents of the settlement from being robbed of food, the militia organized many conflicts with the Brotherhood of Steel. As a true militia general, it is naturally impossible for him to handle all matters of the furry, not to mention that Lane cannot stay here forever, so the usual trivial matters are naturally handled by Nora and Preston. Be resolved. And Ryan is only responsible for formulating and improving plants, while using the magic of life and nature to purify every piece of land that joins the settlement of the militia. In addition, Ryan only did 2 specific tasks. One was to help Captain Zhao on the Yangtze River to repair his submarine, and gave him a lot of drawings and improved seeds of steam technology. Watched the Yangtze River submarine drive further and further away. Ryan felt that this was also a dream when he played games in his previous life. Another thing was to go to refuge number 81, and after using the potion to cure the injured child, Ryan found a good deal for the militia and found a BB kid and a medical research robot Curie for himself. There is also a saved universal healing agent. Of course, this potion and all the data were transferred to Dave, hoping that Dave could study what was in it. After coming to the wasteland for a month, Ryan watched everything going to the regular and ready to find the world protagonist Knight to see what he could trade and go home. At this time Knight came to the sanctuary, hoping Ryan would do him a favor. Chapter 128, Final Negotiation. It turned out that Knight had found his child and now serves as the father of the college leader, but unlike in the game, when he called Nora to the academy, their child Shane was already dying because of terminal illness, and finally died in their arms. But this is much luckier than in the game. At least 60 years later, the family reunited again. However, before death, Father Shane gave his position to Knight, and Knight suppressed the opponents in the college through a series of negotiations and battles, with a commitment to stop all hostilities on the ground. No longer use synthetic people to replace waste residents, release all willing synthetic people, and suspend self-conscious and adult manufacturing at the cost of railway reconciliation. Of course, the railway side also admitted that the previous washing of synthesizers' memories and injecting them into their woven memories and cosmetic surgery is just some kind of emergency measures in that difficult environment. In the future, they will only reweave the memories of synthetic people who voluntarily change their memories. Knight now hopes that Ryan, as a militia general, will cooperate with him to concentrate the railway, the academy and the militia to rebuild order on this land. What about the Brotherhood of Steel? Ryan asked. I now hope to gather our strength to bring the Brotherhood to the negotiating table. After all, too much blood has shed on this land. Well, call me on the day of the negotiation, and I will go with you. Lane agreed to Knight's request. In the end, Ryan asked Knight a question he didn't understand after playing games in his life. Why does the Academy produce a 3rd-generation synthesizer? Obviously what the 1st-generation synthesizer can do. Why does the Academy have to produce a self-conscious synthesizers plug themselves up? I think this is the reason why the people in the college have been self-enclosed for a long time, and they see themselves as gods after seeing the backwardness and ignorance on the ground. Knight said in a somewhat helpless tone. So they tried to create a new life to replace the existing human beings, and then they ruled everything as gods above. Sure enough, as the great man said, the route is wrong. The more knowledge, the more reactionary. Lane said with emotion. If college technology is not used on this kind of crooked evil, but used to change the wasteland of the Federation, it is likely that the Federation has now become a good place for human survival. Yes, this is why I chose to accept the leadership of the college. Although I still hate them for taking my children and hate what they did before. But I know that the technology in it may change the whole thing, the world. So I hope I can change the Academy to get the Academy back on track and atone for their previous actions. I think it is far better for the entire Federation or even the entire world than to destroy it for a while. Knight was a bit painful, but still said firmly, "You're right." Lane tipped his foot and patted Knight's shoulder. I hope the future will unite the creatures on this wasteland and mobilize all forces to change the world. Although I am just a traveler passing by here, I still hope that the world will have a future. After all, you know that I am a plain businessman. Only when every world becomes prosperous can I earn more benefits. Knight also recovered from the pain at this time. Thank you anyway, Ryan. At least with your help, all the bases and farms have renewed their vitality. Anyway, I was attacked when I came along. The frequency is much less than when I left. On the same day, Knight lived in the sanctuary. The militia headquarters is now located in the Sanctuary of Sanctuary, because there is more room for development. The original castle served as an important fortress for the militia and a training center for recruits on the eastern coast. has also done a lot of construction before the sheltered villa. The militiamen used a lot of human and robots to build a new fortress group on the Hill of Refuge 111, and set up hospitals, warehouses and schools in it. The Sanctuary of Asylum is a city attached to the fortress for everyone to live and plant. Since the soil in the sheltered mountain has been completely purified, a large number of greenhouses have been built, and the repaired computers and robots have been used to turn the greenhouses into intelligent automated farms. Because of the existence of greenhouses, plants can grow steadily from radiation storms and radiation rain. Now, these agricultural products that have basically eliminated radiation and virus pollution have become the new favorite of residents in this wasteland, and the food stamps issued by the militia tend to become a new hard currency in Wasteland. 2 days later, the Brotherhood of Steel sent a messenger to bring back a reply that agreed to negotiate. At noon the next day, everyone will come to Diamond City to negotiate together. Only one leader, one deputy, and 10 guards are allowed on each side. Ryan felt the difference between the Brotherhood and the game was a bit too good to talk, so made some preparations. After all, the heart of defense is indispensable. Early the next morning, Ryan put on a newly made general uniform. The old one was too big to wear, and Preston and each of the 10 mobile militiamen drove to Diamond City with a robot. The mobile militia is a team that Ryan has just assembled for less than a week. In view of the fact that some enemies are not able to deal with semi-professional militia, Ryan organized some militia with rich combat experience as mobile forces to serve as the elite forces directly under the headquarters. Each of them wears a uniform of bulletproof cloth and armor, and carries enough weapons, ammunition and rune stones. The most important thing is that everyone has an armed robot as their vehicle and combat partner. And this negotiation is their first appearance after a short training. After arriving at the entrance of Diamond City, www.mplnovel.com Lane found that the people of the railway were already waiting for them there. The lead is a middle-aged woman with blonde hair, which should be the railway leader Desmunda. After seeing them, Desmunda was surprised at the age of the militia General Lyon, and then came up and shook hands and said, "Thank you very much for your support of our just actions. And thank you very much for treating the synthetics equally. We militiamen are committed to remaking order on this wasteland and eradicating the evil on the wasteland, so we will definitely treat all creatures who share our ideas equally. Whether they are synthetic people, wise ghouls or even willing to work with mutants who get along peacefully." Having said that, Ryan paused for a moment, then looked up and looked at Desdemona seriously and said, "But I still hope that you will no longer put those synthesizers secretly into various strongholds. Those inexplicable synthesizers really let us tension. Sorry. It won't be in the future. The college is now willing to change its attitude towards treatment and adulthood, and we don't have to let those who synthesize people incognito penetrate into various strongholds." Seriously, if the college is willing to really change their approach, then I think the railway will really disappear one day. But all of us are very happy about this future, Desmunda said in a relaxed tone. As Ryan and Desmunda talked about the college, a burst of blue light flashed. Night took Virgil and the stalkers to the door of Diamond City. Although the members of the railway still looked at the school side with a bad face, the leaders of the two sides still shook hands to express reconciliation. After everyone stood and waited for a while, the sound of the engine came from the horizon, and it seems that the last party of the Steel Brotherhood finally arrived at the talks. Chapter 129, Assault and Battle. "Wait, it's not right," Ryan said suddenly, because he felt that the sound was a little too loud, so he took out a telescope from his pocket and looked into the sky, and found that there were more than a dozen flying bird helicopters. At this time, Lane subconsciously used life-detecting magic, which showed that many people were ambushing in the surrounding buildings. "This is a trap, be careful." As soon as Ryan's voice fell, a red laser shot from the surrounding buildings. Then some people in the uniform of the Brotherhood emerged from the window. Damn it! Ryan retreated into the Diamond City with everyone while commanding the robot as a bunker and defense line to block the sight of the surrounding ambush. As soon as the door was reached, the door of Diamond City was closed. This was an ambush designed by the Brotherhood. "What shall we do now?" Ryan shouted towards the next knight hiding behind a doorpost. At this time everyone is fighting back because the three parties brought elite. So far there has been no casualties. This is a conspiracy of the Brotherhood. There are jammers nearby so that the Academy can't transport us away. "Isn't your militia in Diamond City? Why don't you open the door for us?" Knight responded with a sound of gunfire. After all, our militia was rebuilt only a month ago, and the first batch of grassroots commanders were not trained. The militia in other places except Sanctuary Hill and the castle were joined temporarily. "I guess the militia in Diamond City has been rebelled by the Brotherhood of Steel after all. This is a rare large gathering point of the Federation. I don't believe it if the Brotherhood of Steel has not penetrated here." Ryan stretched out his wand and used the newly learned soul magic soul whipping to lay down a few wearing heavy armor. The Knight of the Iron Brotherhood replied helplessly. Soul flogging is one of the new magics that Ryan has mastered after he arrived in this world, because most of the humans here wear armor and even heavy power armor. So many magics can't play their due effect on them, but the corresponding people here do not have much advantage in soul defense. So Ryan found some soul attack magic from life magic to deal with the turtle shells that exist in this world. Afterwards, Ryan and Knight turned their eyes to Desmonder. Desmonder found that the two of them looked at him a little helplessly and said, "Before we had been dispersing activities in order to avoid being smashed by the net. So now even if we have us in Diamond City, people can't be reached. And we didn't find any flaws when we checked. It's estimated that the other party was already prepared. Well, if everyone can't help, then use my backup plan." After finishing, Ryan took out a semaphore and rushed into the open ground to shoot 3 signal flares into the air. Signal flares are specially made and fly very high. These flares are basically visible throughout the Federation. Members of the Brotherhood on the Flying Bird helicopter coming from afar can also see these. You need to know that some major forces on the Waste now have some dangerous technology. We can lead out their leaders this time and eradicate them, and then wipe out the organizations that have no leaders, so that we can protect in this area technology, and eliminate the threat of misuse of technology. On the Asuka helicopter, Elder Maxson gushed to the Brotherhood paladins around him. Suddenly several flares slowly rose from their destination in front. Then smoke rose in several places on the ground, and some black dots emerged from the smoke, flying parabolically to the flare. Finally, these black spots fell into the building around the square inches front of the Diamond City gate and exploded. The windows of the buildings were filled with black smoke and orange-red firelight. The radio in the Asuka helicopter also sent a panic call. "We have been hit by a lot of fire and suffered heavy losses. Now we urgently need support." When Elder Maxson hurried to his destination, the battle was over. Only a pile of militia robot ruins and a large number of Brotherhood casualties remained on the square. "What is going on?" Elder Maxson asked angrily in front of the paladin in charge. No wonder Elder Maxson is so angry. After a simple inventory, the members of the Brotherhood who participated in the ambush, except for the team that captured the Diamond City with the militia traitors, almost all the troops. In particular, the members of the Brotherhood ambushing in the surrounding buildings destroyed the building due to the previous attack, resulting in a large number of people lost as the building collapsed. "No, I don't know." The cold sweat on the paladin's head fell down, and then he stuttered. "We don't know what happened. After the flares were upgraded, we seem to have been bombarded, and the building collapsed. The jammers originally hidden in the building also broke down, and then all of them disappeared in the blue light. You are now dismissed. Now take off the power armor and roll to the post." Elder Maxson turned and said to the paladins behind him, "We are only temporarily frustrated, but it does not matter. We will soon have absolute strength crushes them." As Elder Maxson of the Brotherhood of Iron and Steel continued to talk, Ryan and everyone were discussing the situation today in a conference room of the college. "I really want to thank you today. If you hadn't prepared it in advance, we would all have to die." The Knight said to Ryan with some fear. www.mtlnovel.com. Desmonder nodded. "I just think that the Brotherhood of Steel is not as easy to compromise, so I just ordered the militiamen around several strongholds to use the artillery to measure the parameters near the square inches front of the Diamond City gate in advance. I didn't expect luck to blow up the jammer in the first round of attack," Ryan said calmly. "Since this is the case, we and the Brotherhood of Iron had only one way to war. So what should we do next?" Ryan asked the other two people on the table. This issue triggered a discussion. Finally, everyone agreed to get the beryllium oscillator in the big nuclear fusion plant first. After all, the big robot of the Brotherhood of Iron and Steel threatened everyone. Just do it, because everyone does not know if the Brotherhood of Steel will also send someone to get the beryllium oscillator. This task was given to Knight and Lane, because they are the only top-level combat powers that can be put into battle immediately. When was teleported to the top of the big nuclear fusion plant, Ryan saw several flying bird helicopters flying in the distance. It seems that the Brotherhood also thought of this and acted. Lane asked Knight to pick up things, then quickly took out several previously prepared weapon towers and laid them on the roof, then hid the generator in the house, and connected the electricity to the weapon tower with wires. Finally, a magic spell was cast on each weapon tower. After everything was laid out, Asuka helicopter approached the roof. Ryan quickly turned on the power, and all the weapon towers output full power. The 5 or 6 Asuka helicopters arrived were unprepared and were easily shot down by Ryan's firepower. In this way, the support of the Brotherhood will be temporarily out of the way, and Knight will have enough time to get things. Chapter 130, Attack Plan. More than 20 minutes later, Ryan saw a flying bird helicopter coming from afar, and Knight also came out of the rooftop entrance with a beryllium oscillator. As soon as things got settled, Ryan used BB Kid to call the academy to send them back. After reaching the academy, Ryan only knew through chatting that this time it was so fast because Knight used the rune stones of the slow falling and floating spells flexibly. When going downstairs, use the slow falling spell rune stone to jump directly to the first floor, avoiding the security robot in the building. After getting the things out, he used the floating mantra to grab the walls of the patio and quickly return to the top floor. Is precisely because he is good at using all the resources at hand, So Knight is considered to be the most powerful adventurer on the wasteland. Ryan felt that he had learned a lot from this matter. After putting the beryllium oscillator into the reaction furnace of the Academy finally solved the energy problem that troubled him for a long time. Then everyone got together again to discuss what to do next. I still think it is necessary to reduce casualties as much as possible. Although the railways are wrong, they have been working hard to eliminate predators and mutant robbers on the waste soil, and have made huge sacrifices. This objectively maintains the waste soil order. At least they are not more evil than the previous Academy. I think we should leave them a chance. This was when Desmond proposed to send people to the airship, and then blow up the airship to destroy the entire headquarters of the Brotherhood of Steel. Knight offered his different opinions. How is it possible? This is a battle after all. I don't think our mercy can be exchanged for their kindness. Desmond put forward his point of view. No, it's not like that. In fact, Knight said it has operability. Ryan put forward his opinion after listening to their argument. By the way, you are a wizard, you must have other ways. Knight said excitedly. I do have a way to handle the Brotherhood with minimal casualties, but the prerequisite is that any of you can bring me close enough to them. The big guy was in deep contemplation, and finally Desmond thought of, how much space do you need? Length, width and height are enough for 5 meters. Ryan said, but it must be close enough to the Brotherhood at the airport. This time my magic range is based on all my targets within a distance of 200 meters. So that place must be able to cover all the places in the Brotherhood of the airport. Give me 3 days, I have a way to get it done. After speaking, Desmond asked someone to send her to the railway headquarters to prepare to go. During these 3 days, the Federation was in a strange calm. Instead of attacking from all sides, the Brotherhood of Steel contracted a large number of patrols toward the headquarters to make a defensive posture. This behavior even forced the militia to take over several of their empty posts to resist the harassment of monsters and robbers in nearby settlements. 3 days passed in a flash. When Ryan finished carving the last piece of slate that was taken from the glowing sea burst by a mutant militia team and had been purified by energy coffee beans, Desmond and Knight came to the militia fortress of Sanctuary. After seeing Ryan, Desmond hurriedly said, "We are ready. When can we start?" "Tonight. Concentrate on reliable manpower. If you don't need to fight, you're basically secret, so confidentiality is the core. If the situation is wrong, you can pull out in time." Ryan waved the carved slate into the space bag, and then stood up and said, At 8 o'clock that day, a team of more than 20 people from the 3 parties gathered in the college's transfer room, and then collectively transferred to the street not far from the airport. The mutants here are all cleaned up by the Brotherhood, so we have a safe house here. I think Knight is right. In any case, the Brotherhood has contributed to the Federation and can reduce the number of dead people, as few dead people as possible. After walking for more than 10 minutes, they reached their destination. The so-called safe house is actually a pre-war residence. It is very close to the airport. Standing in front of the window on the 3rd floor of the house, you can clearly see the giant robot and the Brotherhood airship. It's about 200 meters from the airport. We spent 3 days digging a tunnel leading to the airport, and at the end of the tunnel we built a basement according to your requirements. With the help of your rune stone, we guarantee the action was not discovered by the other party. Desmond told Ryan. Sure enough, digging a hole is the talent of the railway. Ryan feels that even if he has enough magic power to dig with magic, he may not be as perfect as the railway. In the bathroom on the 1st floor of the room, Ryan saw an authentic entrance, a downward hole the size of a manhole cover. There is an iron ladder leading to the bottom of the cave. Climbing down the ladder, Ryan found that the entire passageway was very small, only 1 meter 5 wide and a little more than 6 meters high. If it is an adult, it is likely that you will need to walk with your head down. Fortunately, Ryan is 12 years old and feels relaxed in such a small tunnel. Walking forward for 10 minutes in the dark and dull tunnel, Ryan finally came to the basement at the end of the tunnel. The size of the basement was built according to his requirements. There are a lot of metal and wood components on the walls and ceiling of the basement. As support www.mplnovel.com. Above this place is the waiting hall of the old airport. We can't dig forward anymore because the Brotherhood on the tower and the robot side is very strict. We are worried that they may be found by digging forward. An accompanying female railway agent was introduced. This place is much better than I thought. I can basically be sure that there is no problem. After finishing, Ryan began to dig out carved stone slabs from the space bag in order, and finally produced a double layer, 2 meters in diameter, a small altar 30 centimeters high. These stones are made of purified stones with a glowing sea burst. Before, Ryan used a food stamp to offer a reward. Let everyone see what they haven't seen and send them to the militia headquarters to see if they can find useful treasures. As a result, the only variant of the People's Soldier Squad ran to the glowing sea where no one else could reach and collected a lot of things and sent them to the headquarters. Lane found that part of the stone they sent was actually a very good magical material, and it was suitable as an altar after purifying the radiation. Finally, I realized that it was the stone that burst the heart of the nuclear bomb. This should also be regarded as a cultivation resource that radiates the world's specialty. Ryan was crying at the time and couldn't let the mutants gather more in the future. Then the existing stone on the hand is made to the required size. after which the rune is carved and the depression is filled with gold and silver mixed metal and smoothed. Now, these stones have become the components of Ryan's portable altar, and when these ritual magics are used in the future, there is no need to temporarily build them as in the past. Not to mention that this kind of altar is better than the temporary altar due to the material. Now that everything is ready, Ryan asks the railway agent next to him to take out his sleeping bag and lie down. Because the effect of magic release is better in the middle of the night, he needs to wait for the time of action. Chapter 131, The Emergence of Strategic Magic. Wake up, wake up. In his dream, Ryan felt that someone was shaking himself while a female voice rang in his ear. Open your eyes and your vision slowly clears. A young black woman's face appeared in front of her, and Ryan finally recovered. I thought I had just let the railway agent call myself when the time was up. Okay, I'm already awake. Thank you for your reminder. After that, Ryan got out of his sleeping bag, took out a bottle of water, washed his face and woke up. Reaching out his pocket watch, Ryan discovered that the time had passed at 3:30 in the morning and it was time to start. After inviting the agent to wait in the middle of the tunnel, Lane went to the altar and pulled out his wand. Xiao King, who had been wrapped around his left arm as an armband, fell from the upper arm and fell onto the altar. Then it became a python-sized circle around the altar, and the upper body stood up, extending his head to the same height as Ryan's head. After Xiao King was in place, Ryan began to recite the spell while waving his wand, and Xiao King's body slowly turned around the altar with the rhythm of the spell. With the recitation of the spell, the runes inlaid with gold and silver on the altar were lit one after another, emitting a dim white light. The white light became brighter and brighter, and finally even overshadowed the brightness of the emergency lights on the wall. At this time, the light on the runes no longer continued to brighten. Under the direction of Ryan's spell, the runes composed of white light slowly detached from the altar, and then began to revolve around the altar with the swing of Ryan's wand, forming a white light band flying in the air. Unlike Ryan's previous ritual magic of soothing the undead, Ryan now uses strategic magic that is almost lost in the modern world of magic. Strategic magic release needs to be prepared in advance, and requires a long period of immobility when launching. If this world is a magical world, Ryan will never use this kind of magic, because when the spell starts, the place where the spell is cast will show an abnormal magic reaction. If there is no large number of people to help cover the people who release the strategic magic, they will become a live target that is set on fire. In the world of Harry Potter, as the wizards self-enclose the world away from moles, this kind of magic used for large-scale wars has gradually been lost. After all, the population of the wizarding world is not very large, and wars that lead to pure wizarding are often small-scale battles. So this kind of strategic magic used for a wide range has slowly faded out of the wizarding world. In the heritage of the ancient Viking wizards that Lane acquired, he was fortunate to retain a lot of strategic magic. However, compared with the undead army recorded in the heritage, the restoration of large magics such as the Holy Land, the exhausted mist that Ryan uses today is just a weakened version of some original magic. After all, if it is the original version, either a large amount of precious magic materials or a powerful wizard as a spellcaster is required to release, or a sufficient number of trained wizards must be released together. So for the sake of convenience, the wizards developed a lot of truncated versions of strategic magic for a wizard to use. Naturally, this truncated version has much less magical power. For example, the original Fog of Exhaustion can release a magical mist covering a small city a few kilometers away, and the reduced version can only cover a base size at close range. Today is the first time Ryan uses this kind of magic. For the sake of careful consideration, he used the segmental casting skills in the heritage. This technique can be used to inject the magic power that needs to be injected at once without affecting the magic power. It's just that the overall mana consumed in this way will be more, and it will greatly increase the casting time. For example, today this magic can theoretically be released in only 10 minutes, but Ryan worried that his magic reserve could not be completed in one breath. So he pulled the entire casting time to 30 minutes. Then Ryan has enough time to restore the magic and release the magic. This also causes this technique to be unusable in wizarding in most situations in the Harry Potter world, because a few times the casting time is enough for the opponent to cast the segmented caster into a screen. Half of the time passed, Ryan's spell also reached its climax. Along with the recitation of the spell, Xiao King also opened his mouth and spit out a stream of light green mist in the basement. Slowly following the command of the wand, the mist began to merge with the white glowing characters in the air. The characters also turned into an unknown green light. Finally, the emerald green light filled the entire basement. Xiao King stopped spraying the mist, and the whole snake showed a feeling of exhaustion. And sweat beads also appeared on Ryan's forehead. A soreness came from his arm, and his throat was hot. But he gritted his teeth and insisted, because the magic was about to be released. In the chanting of the spell, one green light after another came up through the ceiling to the ground. When these characters were exposed on the ground, they quickly faded away and turned into a faint white mist, then slowly drifted towards the airport. If it is during the day www.mtlnovel.com, this abnormal phenomenon is likely to be discovered by the sentry. But now it is night, and the sentries are not so vigilant during the day. Not to mention that the airport is on the seashore, where fog often appears at night. Fortunately, it happened to be a foggy day today, so the mist generated by the magic was mixed into the sea fog. No one noticed this unusual situation. Over time, the mist of magic completely enveloped the base of the Brotherhood. In the moment when Ryan's magic was completely released, the members of the Brotherhood suddenly found that they were paralyzed and unable to move, and then they went black and comatose. After the ceremony was over, Ryan sat on the altar, feeling a sense of exhaustion from the flesh to the soul, and Xiao King was tired and paralyzed to the side of the altar. But he knew that there was something to do at this time, not a time for rest. So Ryan made Xiao King shrink to the size of an earthworm and put it in a bottle full of sunlight crystals in his jacket pocket. Then he pulled the rope on the wall according to the agreement. The other end of the rope was connected to a bell in the safe house. Previously, Ryan told others that if the bell sounded his magic success, those who were attacked by magic within 8 hours would be in a sleepy state that could not wake up. They only need to deal with the automatic weapons set by the Brotherhood. After sitting against the wall for a while, Ryan packed everything in the basement, then slowly followed the passage toward the safe house. Crawling out of the tunnel entrance, Ryan found everyone in the room sitting nervously looking at the door. After hearing the sound in the tunnel, a militia pulled Lane out of the tunnel. "What are you doing?" Lane asked quietly. "We sent the investigators." "Nay," I said in a nod. "I hope he can bring us good news." Chapter 132, Radiation World is over. In the small dark room, breathing sounds one after another. The windows of the room have been nailed with wooden boards, and the situation outside is not visible. Only 2 faint lights of emergency lights shone on each anxious face. Suddenly there was a knock at the door, and everyone clenched the weapon in their hands. Opening the door, a militia panted and said cheerfully, "Everyone in the Iron Brotherhood is asleep, and I won't wake up when I go up and beat them." Operation. After listening to the report of the militia, Knight, the commander in charge of the operation, took the order immediately and gave the order, "Let's destroy the jammer first, and then send the follow-up troops." Everyone should be careful of the automatic weapon station. Don't go wrong at this time. You can control the members of the Brotherhood that do not resist, and no mass killing is allowed. Then Knight looked at Lane, who was already out of force, and said, "General Lane, you have a rest here. We will come back to call you when things are done." After talking about him, he left 2 of the previous investigators to stay here as a guard. Looking at Knight's departure, Ryan insisted on his tired body. In addition to trying not to kill people, all their computer-like things must be preserved. The Brotherhood of Steel is a collector of knowledge and technology on the wasteland. Once something is lost, we may never find it back. Sure, you don't have to worry about this anymore. After he finished, he took the helmet of the power armor out of the room. Ryan climbed to the 2nd floor and found a cushion to sit cross-legged and meditate, and quickly entered a state of deep meditation. I don't know how long after that, Ryan recovered from meditation. He felt that his whole body had recovered completely, and in this exhausted situation, meditation allowed him to cultivate further, and the top was usually harvested in a month. After checking his body, Ryan felt that his stomach was burning and hungry. So he stood up and pushed open the door, ready to go downstairs to find something to eat. As soon as the door was pushed open, the room downstairs was full of music and loud noises. After going down the stairs, Ryan found that the door had been pushed open. It was still night outside, but there were many people crowded on the street eating, dancing and dancing around the fire. What's wrong? Ryan felt confused. As soon as he walked to the door, he saw Knight came up with a cup, and then handed Ryan a cup of milk with 2-headed cows. He said to the people on the street, "This action, we won a huge victory. There were no casualties. This is the credit of the wizard Ryan. So I suggest that we wish him here." After speaking, Knight raised his glass and shouted, "Respect Wizard Right." The voice fell, and everyone on the street also raised their glasses and shouted, "Respect Wizard Right." Ryan was also infected by this atmosphere. He lifted the glass like the big guy, and then drank the milk in the glass. Then, under Knight's guidance, he came to a table, and then Ryan discovered that Desmonder and several other important people were on the table. "I really want to thank you this time," Desmonder said, and then she began to talk about the battle that day. It should be said that there was basically no fighting that day. After breaking several remote control machine gun towers, they quickly rushed into the airport to remove the jammer. Then, the college used the molecular transmission equipment to transport the large troops into the airport. The rest of the matter was simple. They captured all the members of the Brotherhood at the base, then obtained a complete base, including giant robots, airships and a large number of classified and stored scientific and technological information. When we came back, we found out you were sitting there motionless, and you couldn't wake up. We were a bit worried at the time, but your robot Curie confirmed that you had no problem, so we waited here and didn't dare to move you. In the evening, we chose to hold our celebration party on the street. I didn't expect you to wake up now. Daisy Mona summed up here after everything was said. I'm sorry to trouble you. Ryan thanked. Today is our time to celebrate. Let's put everything else tomorrow. Later, Ryan and everyone will enjoy the feast made from the supplies seized by the Brotherhood of Steel. Celebrate together until late at night. Early the next morning, Everyone returned to the college to start discussing the future of the Federation. After a final discussion in the morning, they set the tone for the future. The Federation will establish a unified management structure and every organization will change. The college will develop on the ground and become a federal research center. It is necessary to produce the first-generation synthetic man without self-consciousness to supplement the labor shortage. Ryan's steam robot is still too big for many small jobs. The railway is transformed into a federal intelligence organization and chamber of commerce, which is responsible for detecting unfavorable actions against the Federation and the maintaining material exchanges between settlements. The militia, as a settlement armed group, is responsible for cleaning up the wild enemies that threaten various settlements. At the same time, after receiving part of the plant research in the Life Research Department of the college, it will continue to deepen the research and promote the cultivation of new plants, and slowly improve the environment. www.mtlnovel.com. And for the spoils of the Brotherhood, the airport will be opened up as a new settlement. The collected technology is handed over to the college. The Pledwin and Asuka helicopters are the direct forces of the Federation. They use the things from the three organizations to use these things, and use their mobility to completely eliminate all the harmful forces on the wasteland of the Federation. As for the giant robot Free Supreme, this robot cannot fight for a long time without enough energy to start, so it is saved at the airport as an emergency backup. The captives of the Brotherhood were sent to the newly constructed education center on Wonder Island. I hope that they can reverse their extreme racist ideas through labor and education. 3 days later, Ryan participated in the federal inauguration ceremony in Diamond City, and then appointed Preston as the leader of the volunteer army during his absence. As he was about to set out to take care of things at the Sanctuary of Asylum, Knight and Desmond, brought by Preston, stopped Ryan. "We heard that you are leaving." "Yeah, I have been here for so long, and I should go home." Looking at the change in the two people in front of him, Ryan knew that they wanted to go awry, so he quickly added a sentence. "Of course I still come back from time to time," saying maybe if I travel more places in the future, I can find a way to completely restore the Federation. Obviously, Knight knew Ryan's identity from his wife, so he said, "I wish you a smooth journey, but remember that the Federation will always welcome you back." "Relax, I will definitely come back. After all, there are so many people and things that are important to me here." After talking with him and the 3 other people here, he gave a hug, and then returned to the Sanctuary of Piazza. Some of the things opened the space store and returned to the Wonji grocery store. Chapter 133, Radiation World Summary. A blue light door opened and Lane entered the Wonji grocery store, followed by a round white robot. Because Curie was curious about what the other world looked like, she wanted to follow Ryan. So Ryan took her out. "Oh, the area here is too small, and there are no breathable windows." "Are you living here?" As soon as he stepped into the outside grocery store, Curie asked his question. No, I live in my world. It's just a transit point." "You turn your back first, and I have to change clothes first." When Ryan finished taking off his clothes, he put them into the Wonji grocery store. The suit of clothes. Using magic to cut the hair to the length when it came in, Ryan began to look at the rewards of this adventure. The biggest gain is naturally the offset point. The 68 points of the offset point obtained by the piecemeal made Ryan wide. After seeing the 85 offset point he already had, Lane's first reaction was to improve his strength. Fortunately, after receiving the baptism of nature, he can bear the infusion of spiritual power again. Now he can inject 2 years of skill, but only need 25 and 30 offset points respectively. This is really time and money. Ryan chose with certainty, and then a bunch of shots shot from the ceiling to cover Ryan sitting in the chair. Ryan felt that there was a golden light in front of him, and the whole person seemed to feel as if he was soaking in the hot spring. After a few minutes, this comfort disappeared. Ryan checked his body and happily found that the energy circulation in the body he had obtained through natural baptism not only did not disappear as he feared, but also was strengthened to the level of energy in the body. In addition, after transforming spiritual power into magic through the energy cycle and releasing a few magic, he found that his magic reserve should be able to reach the average level of Hogwarts 7th grade graduates. This means that most of the magic can be used normally. Curie beside him also exclaimed, "Do you know? After the light beam is irradiated, your body data is improved by a large amount, and now it is close to the data of an ordinary adult male, which is incredible. I think I came with you. It's right." After completing the upgrade to himself, Ryan began to count other gains. This time he got a lot of things. For example, he took the time to use the equipment of the college to infuse himself with multiple languages and electromechanical knowledge. Because the endurance of the human brain is limited, Ryan selected the ancient language gift pack as the infusion content. Most of the other knowledge is based on the distorted worldview of radiation, which may not be available in other worlds. In addition to knowledge, Lane also acquired many useful items. For example, a treatment needle that can be cured even if a disability is combined with nutritional supplements, Xiofuning, which strongly eliminates radiation sickness, relieves the addiction of drug addiction, and the muscle hormone medicine Barley pills that stimulates the potential for a short-term increase in strength. However, Ryan discovered that Jita, Minder and other spirit-related medicaments seriously affected the soul, which would destroy the ability to cast spells, so he did not take these drugs. Naturally, it is impossible for Ryan to take drugs alone. A few suits made of bulletproof cloth and various weapons will provide a lot of help for Ryan's subsequent adventures. Not to mention that after obtaining the manufacturing technology of these items, it can provide enough inspiration for Dave of the Plants vs. Zombies world, which is conducive to the restoration of that world. The most important thing is that Lane gained very valuable practical experience in this adventure. From the panic of seeing the first predator being killed in front of him, to the tension of killing the first enemy on the roof of the museum. Finally, you can kill enemies as normal as your companions in battle. These experiences brought him indelible memories and gains. Ryan does not like the feeling of killing, especially killing the same kind. But there is too much dross on the waste soil that is just humanoid. When cleaning up the wasteland of the Federation, the predatory looters will undergo labor reformation after being captured. Someday it will be released. But some marauders' dens found a lot of intolerable things, such as imprisoned tortured residents, and human organs found in pots. For these guys, Ryan's orders are all executed. At the same time, Ryan also realized the feeling of mastering power and the making a decision to life or death. This feeling is sometimes intoxicating, but he was also a man of both generations anyway, and he quickly came to life from that kind of intoxication, and keenly realized that behind these rights is the heavy equivalence responsibility. In this connection, Ryan thought of Professor Dumbledore. He was able to lead the entire school on the right path, and he could unite all the forces that could be united, and lead the Phoenix Society, which is itself a multitude of people, in a tie with knowledge and wealth over their Death Eaters. Even if there is a calculation, it is not for personal gain, but to defeat evil. You can even give your life for it. So no matter how many shortcomings he has, everything he does is worthy of the title of excellent leader. Voldemort is a counterexample. Although the Death Eaters composed of simple power suppression are better than the members of the Phoenix Society in terms of individual ability, but in addition to braving the brain, Bella, they are touching the fish, Malfoy, etc. The advantages of a group cannot be fully reflected. But this situation and Voldemort did not pay much in the group. It is inseparable to rely on a Wado in the heart to maintain the order of terror. Lane hadn't considered this issue carefully before. But this time living in the wasteland for more than a month, especially the experience of leading the militia, made him mature in this respect. And these precious experiences will also play their role in the coming days. www.mtlnovel.com. Finally, Ryan's reputation in the Radiant world has reached the requirements, and the space-time door to the Radiant world can be opened outside the store, and can contact and trade with friends in the world of radiation in non-combat situations. Sitting there summarizing his gains in Radiation world this time, Ryan looked at Curie and asked, "Where are you going now?" "Well, I want to go to the world where you said that humans fight zombies with plants. People there are estimated to need my medical help even more." "Okay." Ryan nodded and paid 5 offset points to take Curie to the world of plants vs. zombies. After Dave talked, Dave expressed his welcome to a well-trained doctor. Curie was arranged as a doctor in the ward of the fortress, and the entire fortress was treated to prevent electromagnetic interference. As long as you don't leave the room, you don't have to worry about the electromagnetic interference capability of the zombie. Ryan told Curie not to leave the house. After all, even if Curie had a design for strong radiation, everyone still worried that Dr. Zombie's electronic war would harm Curie. But the Curie in the room was not boring. Dave installed a computer in the next room with a fiber optic connection to the switchboard for her to use. Ryan saw Dave chatting with Curie in the laboratory about many biological problems. After a while, Dave told Ryan that Curie was an excellent researcher. In the future, such people will welcome you again. At the same time, he told Ryan that what he had sent was very valuable, and now the first factories in the fortress had already started operation. After saying goodbye to Dave, Ryan came to Curie's room. She said she could help many people and communicate with like-minded partners. She was very happy. After confirming that everyone was satisfied, Ryan returned to Wonji grocery store, chapter 134. Goodbye Uncle 9. After arriving at the Wonji grocery store, Ryan thought about not going home, but decided to go around Mr. Zombie's world. On the one hand, after all, I really worship Joshua as a teacher. Over the past few months, it is estimated that Uncle G has also returned from Moshan and needs to visit. On the other hand, I have accumulated some problems in the study of Taoism, and at the same time, my strength had soared a lot. I also need to consult Joshua and ask him for help. Thinking of this, Ryan opened up the world of Mr. Zombie after he packed up the things he wanted to bring with him. Reaching Mr. Zombie's world, Lane found himself on the path where he left last time. This is good news. It doesn't have to take a long time like the last time I came to this world. Turning around the corner, Ryan saw Yizhuang standing on the side of the road, and he stepped forward to knock on the door. "Who?" The voice of Uncle Ju heard from the courtyard. "It seems that Master has returned from Moshan." "Master, it's me, I'm back." Lane replied loudly outside the courtyard. "It's you, kid. I thought you wouldn't come back to the west after meeting relatives this time." After opening the door, Uncle Jit told Ryan, "How can I? I still can't walk away from school on the western side. This is not the summer vacation of the school, so I will come back to see you. By the way, when it comes to school, didn't the evil book you showed me last time affect you? Jushu said seriously as if thinking of something. Of course not. I gave it to the principal of our school. Our principal directly destroyed the evil notebook with his spell. I also found the killing monster and killed it. By the way, that the monster is a 1,000-year-old snake. I got the snake of the 1,000-year-old snake. I don't know how to use it. Can you help me? After talking about Ryan pulling out the snake monster from the space, Jushu was also startled by such a big thing. It's estimated that you can kill it in 9 lives. It's not that difficult. I prepared a lot of institutions in advance, and the magic circle you taught. It was beaten to the death in the beginning, and finally it took a long time to bleed before slowly killing it. A gentleman is not a different person. He is also good at things. I look at you like this and I feel relieved when you go out. Then Jushu said, several elders in Moshan Shaiman were younger because they were demons and demons when they were young. Many evil poisons are unsolved. When they are older, the evil poisons in their bodies are usually very painful. I hope you can take out a part of the snake slough configuration medicine to relieve the pain of these elders. These snakes are useless for me to let go. Just let the master dispose of them. Lane generously sent out the whole snakes. This is too expensive. Shaiman has already accepted you too much affection, but there is nothing to give you. Jushu said a little embarrassedly. Master, you don't despise me for having another school. I'm willing to accept me as a disciple and accept it. This kind of apprentice of great grace and great virtue will never be forgotten. Please don't worry about some foreign objects, Ryan said to Jushu with his hands in fists. Alas. Uncle Ju sighed and patted Ryan on the shoulder. Only then did he notice the changes in Ryan's body. Good boy, your cultivation base is growing too fast. What happened? Of course, if it's not convenient, you don't need to tell me. No, there is no inconvenience in front of you. Then Ryan said about how to eliminate the 8-eyed giant spider in his forbidden forest, and then how to get a natural baptism. After listening carefully, Uncle Ju patted Ryan on the shoulder and said, you belong to heaven and earth for your great blessings. In this case, you don't need to worry about your strength increasing too quickly. You're right. How long can you stay this time? Even a week or two. I still have something to do on the western side, Ryan said a little embarrassedly. Understandable. After all, we have only been separated for a few months. The light of your merits has been much stronger. I think you must be very busy at ordinary times, so you are not forced to stay. When you are here, if you are practicing, just ask me if you have any questions. Thank you, Master. After finishing, Ryan took out the box with Mandela grass from the bag behind him and handed it to Uncle Ji. This is a gift given to me by others. It is a rare herbal medicine from the West. It is just used to configure the anti-petrochemical agent. But I think this thing should be more than that. Thinking about the master, you may need, so I will give it to you. After explaining the characteristics of Mandela grass and its effect, the grown-up form is still awesome, but this is a natural treasure for babies and ginseng dolls. I'll find a brother who is good at refining medicine to help me to see it later, so as not to blame the heavenly things. Uncle Ji opened the lid. After looking at Mandela sleeping in it, he said. Then Ryan sent the 2 brothers the nutritional medicine that radiates the world. They also like this gift that can quickly replenish chi and blood. In addition, Ryan sent several shotguns, revolvers and supporting ammunition to Yizhuang. After all, this is a chaotic era. www.mtlnovel.com. In addition to rampant demons, there are many bandits and bullies. In such a remote place, it is also good for everyone to have several guns to defend themselves. That night, a Taoist rides a crane to Yizhuang and takes away the snake's decayed Mandela grass. Uncle Ju told Ryan that since he brought those plants back to Moshan last time, Moshan immediately unsealed a group of spirit beasts and magic weapons that were sealed due to the change of heaven and earth. He asked brother to take these treasures to Moshan to invite fellow students on the mountain to study and make full use of these things, and also asked brother to ask master for help for Ryan. Last time, your credit was great, and the elders on Moshan haven't discussed what rewards are good for you for a long time. Now that you have made new contributions, I urge them to let them quickly distribute the reward you deserve, Uncle Ju said to Ryan while touching his chin. For the next period of time, Ryan practiced under the guidance of Jushu every day, and at the same time mastered the use of Taoism in the practice with brother and master. Ryan lost a few games at first because of unfamiliarity, but slowly mastered the use of Taoism. He easily crushed the 2 brothers with stronger overall strength. Look, you have studied for more than 10 years. It's better to be a younger teacher less than a year after getting started. On this day, after another training session, Jushu said that he hated Dian. Our younger brother had a chance encounter. When I was a little dissatisfied, but soon Jushu took the bamboo board and took a palm. Adventure. Your teacher's adventure was exchanged for life, and it's not that lying in the sky can drop the pie. Just as the master and apprentice were noisy, a crane landed in the courtyard from the sky. After seeing it, Uncle Ju said to Ryan, it seems that the elders on the mountain have finally discussed what they are going to give you. Let's go ahead and take a look. Chapter 135, Come Back Home. After the 4 masters and apprentices came to the front yard, they saw a fairy-style bone, a white-haired old owl standing in the courtyard, with a fairy crane standing behind him. After seeing this old man, Joshua hurried forward to Shilly. "Have you seen the Elder Chang? Aren't you closed? Why did you come to run this trip? It's thanks to the new apprentices you collected." Elder Chang waved the dust and said, "We closed the prison that year because of the great changes in the world. If we don't want to get into trouble after a certain level of cultivation, reducing the need for key by closing the death pass. The sunlight crystal brought by your apprentices just solved this problem and gave all practitioners further hope. I also came out of the death pass for this reason and just met the elders have decided on the rewards for your disciples, so I will stop by and take a look. Then Lean will come out soon. Thank you, elders," Uncle Ju said to Ryan. After listening, Ryan hurried to the Chang elder and made a head call. "Under the disciple Liang Leian, I have seen the Chang elder." Okay, the cultivation is pure, and the merits are golden. I have a successor in Moshan," the elder Chang said with full vigor, and then took out a jade card with a large palm and handed it to Ryan. "This is?" Ryan asked, somewhat puzzled after receiving the jade card with both hands respectfully. "This is a heritage jade card. You can directly inherit the practice method, but unfortunately there are not many in this era. I heard your master said that you often encounter danger when going to school in Mani, so we decided to give you this to protect you. After the great changes in the world, many small schools have perished. This is the last inheritance of a small school, Shenxi Alpha. Can this be the undisclosed secret of the Shenxiao school, the largest faction thousands of years ago?" Uncle Ju asked in surprise. "Yeah, but that was a long time ago. After the Northern Song dynasty's demise, they slowly faded away, until a few decades ago, only their last inheritor was seriously injured and came to Moshan. We are defeating the evil according to his narrative." After the ghost, when he got the news, he passed away with a smile. Before sitting down, he handed over the inheritance to us. "Let us help him find a heir." To be honest, when it comes to fighting alone, they will even fare better than our Moshan. Unfortunately, this practice is very demanding on both spiritual energy and merit. Before, we searched for inheritors for a long time, until you introduced us to your apprentice. I am also very happy to see a once great martial art continue to pass on in my lifetime. Afterwards, the Chang elder looked at Ryan and said, "I hope you can carry forward this method, and you will not fall into the prestige of my middle-class tower store. We will live up to expectations." Ryan saluted the Chang elder again. "Okay, this matter is over, and I have gone back to the mountain." The elder Chang declined the stay of Jushu, and left on the fairy crane. In the next few days, under the guidance of Nine Uncle, Ryan began to practice Shenxi Alpha slowly. At the end of the week, a palm thunder was successfully released. The palm thunder landed on the ground and lit the piece of grass. Uncle Ju waved his hand and extinguished the flame with his palm. Then he turned and said to Ryan, I think your problem is almost solved. Is it going to leave soon?" Sorry, Master," Ryan said embarrassedly. "No need to say sorry to me. I will know that you have some serious things to do outside because of your merits. Although you are the youngest in my disciples, we have the shortest time together. But I know you will be the three of you the one who walks the farthest among the brothers. So the teacher will not stop you." Early the next morning, Ryan and Uncle Ji took their packages and left Yizhuang. After turning around the corner and not seeing Yizhuang, Lane returned to the Wanji grocery store. The Wanji grocery store was exactly the same as when he left. The only difference was that the bottle of Pet Xiaoking and Sun Crystal that had been placed on the counter before had been swallowed up by Xiaoking. Seeing Ryan appear in the shop, Xiaoking unscrewed the cap with his tail and jumped out. Then he kept swimming around Ryan's arm, and continued to spoil him through the soul connection. No matter how coquettish, there will be no crystallization of sunlight. The sunlight energy in your body is saturated. It is not good for you to continue to absorb. If you still want to eat, exercise quickly to consume this energy. After watching Xiao King feel a little frustrated after listening to his own words, Ryan went on to say, "It's not that I won't give you anything in the future. You are still living now and you are still too weak to eat much at a time. When you become stronger, you will one day eat as much as you want." After listening to Ryan's comfort, Xiao King immediately got up and continued to circle around his arm happily. At this time, Ryan could feel a new message in the grocery store. He concentrated his attention and found that the message told him that because he used Wanji grocery store many times and gained higher reputation in many worlds, so the Wanji grocery department opened a new function, emergency escape. This feature allows Ryan to use the time and space shuttle function of the Wanji grocery store during combat. Teleport away all voluntary creatures or objects that are not more than twice the volume of yourself. Since this is an emergency use, 10 offset points are acquired at a time, and the destination of each transmission will be randomly selected by Wanji Grocery Store. www.mplnovel.com may appear in this world or another world. The only thing that can be determined is that the place is suitable for human survival. This is really a good feature. Lion sighed. Finally, the grocery store launched a way to escape. If you had it before, you didn't need to be so trembling when you play the basilisk yourself. But it's not too late to have this. After all, the Harry Potter world is not a safe world. Maybe I can use this in the future. After counting the harvest again, Ryan chose to return to his own world that had been away for more than 5 weeks. Through the space-time gate, he saw himself still in the park grove when he set off. The sun in the sky is only slightly offset from when it left. Ryan shook his head and walked to the park bench to sit down. He needs to wait for a while for jet lag. After each crossing time is too long, he will feel a sense of not adapting to his surroundings. After sitting for half an hour, he finally passed the jet lag. Then stand up and walk home along the sidewalk. When she arrived home, she discovered that her mother Sally had gone out temporarily because of an emergency in the hospital. Only his father, Mr. Lambert, was left to catch the manuscript at home. After opening the door, Mr. Lambert looked at Ryan for a moment and said, "Why do I think you're going to fight somewhere?" "Yeah, not only did I participate in the battle, but I also became a general who brought lasting peace to a region," Ryan said half jokingly and half seriously. Mr. Lambert laughed after listening to Ryan's answer. "It's my child. When I was so old with you, I also imagined that I was a general and commanded thousands of horses." In a cheerful conversation, Ryan finally walked into the house that had been away for more than a month. Chapter 136, Summer Holidays. Often. In the next few days, Ryan began to slowly digest the gains this time. "In addition, I also experimented with some magic that could not be released due to insufficient magic power. Unconscious spells, bubble-head spells and other magical releases were smooth, but there was a little problem when experimenting with the Lehukau notes. I last went to Iceland." Ryan found that even if he completely mastered the principle of Lehukau, but can only release is the anti-curse of Lehua curse, even a slight fire on the wand cannot be released. This is the price of the last natural baptism. It is impossible to release the magic that is purely for destruction. However, this price is acceptable compared to what it has gained. After discovering that he can't learn well, Ryan chose to strengthen his learning on Rifra. After all, after Far learns well, the power is no worse than Lihuo. The following days Ryan spent his homework and practicing magic. In the middle, I also received several letters, including postcards and greetings from Hermione from France, various experimental data from Weasley twins that need to be analyzed, and discussions about the content of new products. The most strange thing is that there are a greeting letter from Percy. Probably because of the reminder of Percy in the old bookstore before the school started last year, Percy, who became the president of the student union this year, suddenly sent a letter to Ryan to inform him that he became the president of the student union and asked if Ryan could mention some valuable opinion. Because Ryan recently became a militia general in the radiation world, he even took time out from summer to deal with things in that world. Therefore, in his reply to Percy, Lane incorporated a lot of self-experience and insights on management. Percy originally just wanted to find an acquaintance to ask, and by the way show off that he became the student union chairman. Ryan did not expect anything valuable to be said in the 3rd grade. After reading Ryan's letter, it was found that Ryan could provide much more help than he expected. So he sent several more letters afterwards, slowly asking Ryan some questions he hadn't figured out before. With Ryan's perfect answer to his questions every time, managing hundreds of students is much simpler than managing an armed organization with thousands of people. Percy and Ryan gradually became familiar with each other. The reason why Ryan answered Percy's question so seriously was because he felt that the Weasleys in the original text were good people, and he also hoped that as a hemp wizard, he would know a good acquaintance in the future Ministry of Magic. So he tried to save Percy to avoid a detour in the future. According to Ryan's analysis, the reason why Ripsy broke up with the family was because the Weasley family, or precisely the Arthur Weasley family, had no inheritance or politics. This is what led Percy to choose the wrong camp many times. And what Ryan has to do now is to help Percy make up for this shortboard, and at the same time mix some private goods that will not be harmful to Percy to cultivate allies for himself. More than a month after this kind of day, Ryan suddenly received several letters. Among them, Percy and Weasley twins sent letters to tell Ryan that their father won the prize, so the whole family will go to Egypt for vacation until the school. I was only able to return to the UK the week before, so I was unable to communicate with Ryan during this time. Hermione sent a letter from France, reminding Ryan as a classmate who has a good relationship with Harry. Harry needs to prepare some gifts for her birthday. She is going to give Harry a set of the best of this century bought in France. The tactical illustration of the 10 Quidditch athletes. At the end of the letter, she told Ryan that she would return to the UK within this week. In France, she found many interesting magics, so she revised his thesis to summarize the new findings. Is this the thinking of the of learning? Even though vacationing will still be mindful of academics, Ryan began to review his learning attitude. But soon he paid attention to the last letter, which was from Hogwarts. On the one hand, he told Ryan as an exchange student that he needed to purchase items in advance, and then gathered at the platform of 9 3/4 in advance at 11 o'clock on the morning of August 27th to prepare for the Castro Blue School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The other piece of paper requires permission from the parents to go to Hogsmeade. Ryan took the paper and knocked on the door of his father's study. Mr. Lambert signed himself with the cursive letters after reading the chapter and complained to Ryan, "The first part of my adventure series is very popular, so I hope to write this as a series. But I have not been inspired these days. Son, you are a wizard. Is there any story that can let me find inspiration? Inspiration? Thinking of it here, Ryan suddenly recalled the suspected treasure location that Nick had told him. So he told his father about it. Yes, ghosts, treasures. This is really a very good idea. I think I only imagined how to find treasures out of thin air, so I was exhausted. Now I feel that I may need to really find a treasure to find my inspiration. Maybe I can find a huge treasure. After all, Mr. Lambert stood up abruptly, seemingly wanting to start looking for treasure immediately. Ryan saw the excited father's helpless face. As a writer, Mr. Lambert did sometimes seem too naive. Of course, perhaps because of this kind of heart, he can make no small achievements in this regard. However, as a son, we need to put forward some reasonable suggestions at this time to avoid messing up things. www.mtlnovel.com. Dad, I think we should at least be prepared to talk about it. Do you have to use your hands to plan with your bare hands in the past? Not to mention who the land belongs to now is not clear to us. You can't dig into the private land of others' houses. Well, you are right, I am a little reckless. Mr. Lambert also calmed down at this time. I went shopping for some things these 2 days, and then let's find out who the land is together. Remember, don't tell your mother about this. I am afraid he will stop us from going out. That evening, when her mother, Miss Sally, came back from work at the hospital, she happened to meet Mr. Lambert and went home with a metal detector and shovel he had just bought. After a simple inquiry, Mr. Lambert explained his purpose. Subsequently, the number of adventures changed from 2 originally planned to 3. I always wanted to go through an adventure when I was young, but unfortunately later I realized that that kind of thing was very rare, and I gave up. As a result, I really had the opportunity to go out for adventure and treasure hunting. The 2 of you actually wanted to hide me from this. At dinner time, Sally went to the dining table while chatting about Ryan and Lambert. Mom, don't we respect the lady? Let's do this kind of dirty and tiring job. You call it discrimination. Who told you that women can't do these physical tasks? You have to know that I was still a basketball captain in school when I was young. My body is better than your father who stays at home all day. Actually, I am more worried about your father's support. Although I don't go out at home, I still exercise every day. There is absolutely no problem that I can't hold on. Mr. Lambert quickly defended himself. Ryan quietly watched the interaction between his parents and felt a deep sense of warmth. Chapter 137, Treasure Hunt. Early the next morning, Mr. Lambert took a train straight to the location of the treasure and asked the owner of the land, because that place is not far from London. At noon Mr. Lambert had gone home after inquiry. Seeing Mr. Lambert come in with a weird expression, her mother Sally asked curiously, "What's wrong? Isn't it the royal or aristocratic territory that doesn't allow us to enter the treasure digging?" "No, it's not." Mr. Lambert shook his head and took a sip of water from the cup on the table. "When I passed in the morning, I found that the place was a small farm with a dilapidated house inside. Around the person told me that this small farm has been hosted in an agricultural company for more than a decade. Its owner has not been to the farm several times during this time. Isn't that better? Anyway, they are not professional farmers, so that they agree that we are not more likely to dig something on the farm," Ryan said happily after listening to his father's statement. "Yeah, I was very happy to go to the town to check the owner of this land, and then found that this land belongs to a lady named Jane Sterling." "Wait, this name is a bit familiar. Where have I heard it before?" "Do I know her?" Sally said suddenly. Lambert nodded. "You must know that this lady went to college to London and then married here and married a dentist named Charlotte Granger." Poof! Ryan spit out the water in his mouth. "Father, do you mean this treasure is hidden in the farm of my classmate Granger's mother?" "If it's correct, that's it." Lambert continued. "I think you need to contact your classmates with your wizard. After all, the Granger dentist's family is out and we can't contact them." Okay, Ryan missed the era of the popularity of mobile phones. That night, Ryan received a reply from Hermione. "Dear Ryan, we are now in Calais waiting for the boat to go home tomorrow morning. After receiving your letter, my parents were very excited and they agreed to go to the treasure hunt. Only the requirement is to hope to wait for them to come back together, because my parents are also interested in treasure hunting. It seems that the number of treasure hunters has increased, and now we can only hope that the final treasure will be enriched. Don't be sorry for everyone's enthusiasm." On the 3rd day, the morning after the Grangers returned, Lane and his family drove to the Grangers' farm near Eastbourne. Because East is located at the east end of South Downs, it is the sunniest place in the UK, so this town has become a popular tourist area. Along the way, many vehicles were seen travelling on the highway. After arriving in Eastbourne, the car turned east and turned for another 10 minutes. The scenery along the road slowly changed from hotels and residences to hedges and farms. Finally, they turned a gravel path to their destination. Similar to Mr. Lambert's account, Lane saw a small farm at the end of the gravel road. The farmhouse is a stone cottage with a pointed roof, but the glass on the windows and the roof tiles are tattered. It seems that few people usually come here. Surrounding the house was a circle of stone with a high chest, and a blue Volkswagen RV parked inside. It seems that Hermione's family farm has arrived. Sure enough, after hearing the sound of the car, The Granger family of 3 turned out from behind the broken house. It seems that they should have a great time on this trip to France. Everyone is tanned into a healthy wheat color. After a brief chat, Mothers Sally and Mrs. Granger began to prepare a picnic in the yard, while the dads took their children to start treasure hunting. According to Nick's description, they quickly found the big stone embedded in the abandoned wall at the edge of the ranch. According to Mr. Granger's description, this used to be a French noble manor, which was later sold to Hermione's mother's ancestor. This stone has not been moved since then. Ryan only realized at this time that Hermione was a rich man, but think about it too. Dental at British universities is one of the most expensive tuition fees. A family of college students who can provide a dentist is unlikely to be in poor financial condition. In Nick's letter, the boxes were buried in the secret room under the big stone of the car. And Nick said that the ghost also specifically emphasized that this big stone is part of a secret room, and the door to the secret room can be found by digging from the side. The 2 fathers dug with a shovel for a while according to what Ryan said. Sure enough, when digging for about 30 centimeters, a few pieces of obviously cut stone appeared. This discovery invigorated everyone, and even the 2 ladies came out of the yard and took out the shovel to help dig. After spending more than an hour, a stone arch with a length and width of 2 meters appeared. Also exposed were wooden door leaves and iron bolts installed on the arches. There was a lock on the door bolt, but the wind and rain of 200 years completely rusted the lock. Mr. Lambert smashed the lock with a shovel. You reading www.uukanzu.com. Fortunately, the door hinge is copper without rust. Push the door open in a creak. Everyone found a pile of black weathered straws inside the door. After cleaning the straws, 3 wooden boxes with a length and width of nearly 1.5 meters and a length of 2 meters were exposed. Using the wire ropes and pulleys on the car, everyone easily dragged the 3 boxes from the back room along the newly dug slope. The boxes were very strong and there was no expected cracking. After a simple lunch, the 2 gentlemen took the crowbar to pry open the box to see what was in it. Ryan just confirmed that there was nothing dangerous in it, and stood looking aside with a smile. Hermione stood next to her and opened her eyes in excitement. The first box contained a pile of very beautiful clothes embroidered with gold and silver threads, but unfortunately the color on the clothes became gray as it took too long. The second box was filled with shock-absorbing items such as cotton batting, and the cotton batting was uncovered, with a small pile of gold and silver utensils underneath. After careful inspection, it was discovered that this is the cross, incense burner and candle holder used in some churches. Mr. Lambert picked up a twist and then said, "It seems to be just gold-plated, too light." Mr. Granger picked up another cross and nodded. "This cross is silver." In the end, they found that only the small pieces smaller than the size of the palm could be precious metals, while the others were mostly coated with gold and silver. This said good treasure is a bit anticlimactic. Everyone turned their attention to the last box. The difference between this box and the other 2 boxes is that it is painted with a layer of black paint, and some simple patterns are also carved. After opening the last box, Hermione screamed after looking at it. Chapter 138, Reward. Ryan was taken aback by the scream, and then looked into the box. When he saw the contents of the box, he could not help making the sound of a lying trough, because the box was actually a person, to be exact, a skeleton, a skull wearing a golden helmet and covered with shiny golden armor. No wonder Hermione will scream out. After all, for a 12 or 3-year-old girl, even in the bright sunlight, a skeleton in a wooden box will startle people. The skull lies flat on the shock-absorbing cotton batting in the box. Underneath is a blue velvet flower cloth, and holds a gold-plated ceremonial halberd in the right hand. This appearance does not fall apart, which means that this skeleton should be specially fixed, and was placed there in a standing position before. The skull is covered with a knight plate armor from head to toe. The plate armor is exquisitely embossed and gilded, and it is also decorated with a large number of precious stones. The most peculiar thing is that the armor was supposed to be the thickest chest with 2 large holes. Leave the skeleton's ribs exposed. In addition, there are a lot of cutouts on the armor and leg armor. Show the bones inside. On the skull's face, the visor was pushed onto the helmet. The exposed face is covered with gold pieces inlaid with a large number of precious stones on the mouth and cheeks. Even the hollow eyes are covered with gold wire. Surrounded by a large number of pearl flowers, a large piece of sapphire jewelry is set in the middle. What is more exaggerated is that through the gaps in the armor, you can see that each bone is wrapped with gold wire and inlaid with jewelry. On the hand armor, each finger wears a ring inlaid with large stones. He even wore a gold chain with a thick thumb on his neck, which was also inlaid with various gemstones, and the largest piece even had a thumb. In short, this is a pearlescent skeleton. The richness of the jewelry on it is exaggerated to the extent that there is no room for those bones. Then add jewelry. What is this? Mr. Granger asked in surprise. The 3 women present showed a sad expression. Jewelry is indeed pleasing, but this kind of jewelry directly mounted on the bone shelf is far away. Even if it is beautiful, it will not make people want to have it. Because he was writing an adventure novel recently, Mr. Lambert read a lot of information, and there is exactly information about this thing in front of him. So after listening to Mr. Granger's question, he quickly replied, Sometimes in the late 16th century, some bones were excavated around the 2nd to 5th century AD. At that time, during the Reformation period, the Church wished that these bones belonged to the famous saints, can be used to consolidate the authority of the Church. These skeletons are also called Dharma bodies. The biggest difference between them and the standard skeleton is that they are all dressed in luxurious royal costumes and jewelry from the 18th century. The church is held every year for the jewel skeleton memorial ceremony. It's just that there are very few churches in Britain and Northern Europe due to different factions. In the era when there is no internet, no one knows if some remote knowledge is not specifically searched. So the Grangers couldn't recognize what this was justified. The people doing this are really rich. Hermione sighed aside. Indeed, there may be thousands of gemstones on top of it. Except for the broken gemstones for edging, there are hundreds of large gemstones, especially the red spinel, the size of a pigeon egg inlaid on the chest of the armor, looks no smaller than the one on the Queen's crown, and it is worth a while to think about it. Looking at the jewels inlaid above, you know that the people who made this thing were not only rich, but also powerful. Jewelry craftsmen who can at least achieve this level are not easy to find. This should be a church thing. Let's see if there are any clues. Mr. Lambert's words just fell, and Hermione replied, this should be a French thing, because you see the blue under the skull. The velvet is painted with golden leuantale flowers, which represents the French royal family in the past. We have seen many similar things during our summer vacation in France. There's this too. Ryan finished and took out a wax seal from the box containing the gold and silverware. There was a French word on it, lance. Because many British people choose French as their foreign language, everyone present can understand the word. Mr. Lambert looked at it and said, Lane, you said the ghost told you that it was sent here about 200 years ago. I think it was exactly the time of Napoleon and France was in chaos. Some French people put this the important things were transferred to Britain, and they didn't know why, and they never came back again. These treasures also stayed here. Reims was used as the coronation place of the French royal family in the past. It is also normal for churches there to have such treasures. The question now is how to deal with this thing. Although everyone agrees that the two will share 50% of the income in accordance with the law, treasure on private land in the UK www.mplnovel.com divided by half between the founder and the landlord. But how to do it is a big problem. Once the French are attracted, it is really troublesome. However, Lambert quickly finalized the solution after consulting with Mr. Granger. After returning to London, Lane discovered that his father had started calling the reporter. Now that his father is away, Lane enters a normal vacation life. Until this weekend when he was studying in the library, Hermione suddenly walked in from outside and put a newspaper on the table. The Sun? When did your taste become like this? Ryan asked Hermione strangely after glancing at the newspaper. Look at the 4th edition. Hermione said briefly. Ryan turned to 4 editions at once, pretending that the first few editions did not exist. Then he was surprised to see the picture of his father and Mr. Granger standing in front of a silver-plated cross. Below the photo is written, a dentist and a writer from London. Very precious cultural relics have been found in England. They decided to return these cultural relics to the French, who were willing to pay more than £2 million as a reward for both of them. This is really good news, Ryan said excitedly. Really? Hermione echoed. Unfortunately, the magic world manages the exchange of canon too tightly, otherwise I will be able to buy a few expensive books. Xjan's thinking is really different from normal people. Ryan reviewed the pile of money that appeared in his mind just now. After returning home that day, I saw my parents happy to discuss the use of the money to travel around the world, and I realized my dream of having my own farm when the two first got married. A smile also appeared on Ryan's face. He could use his ability to bring a better life to his family, and he felt happy from the heart. Chapter 139, Shopping Trip. As the time passed, the excitement brought by the treasure hunt slowly receded, and the days were back on track. During breakfast one day, Lane was eating a boiled egg. The announcer on the TV suddenly started reading a new piece of news and grabbed his attention at once. The public must pay attention that Black is armed and extremely dangerous. A hotline has been set up specifically. Who knows Black's trace? He must report it immediately. Then a thin face appeared, all tangled around and a foot long. The photo of the man with messy hair looks a bit fierce. It's a bit weird. Isn't this jailbreak supposed to be reported from which prison it came from? Why is this not reported? Is this person a special prisoner of the military or intelligence? Mr. Lambert stepped on the bread smeared while talking. This man is a wizard. I used to see the history of the wizarding world through old newspapers in the school library. I saw this person. It is said that he killed a dozen people in one breath. God, so dangerous. Mother Sally exclaimed. But the strange thing is that he did not run after killing people, but waited on the spot to be arrested. Finally he was sent to the wizard's prison without interrogation. Uninterrogated? Mr. Lambert noticed the word in Lane's words. That means that he doesn't have to commit a crime, or it may just be the unfortunate man who appeared in the murder scene. It seems that you have to be careful when you go to school there. I feel that the wizarding world is insecure. Well, you continue to eat. I think my son is just going to school, and there will be no intersection with this kind of wanted criminal. Sally shouted a little unpleasantly as the father and son began to discuss the murderer. Good wife, Mom, let's shut up and eat now. Ryan and Son looked at each other and hurried to eat. Ryan feels that he may be a fake protagonist, because the rest of the holiday is very dull, and he has not encountered many dog form series that can be encountered by the protagonists in the same fan. In the last week of the holiday, Ryan and Hermione took the subway to go shopping in Diagon Alley. The door on the wall leading to Diagon Alley just opened the Broken Cauldron bar. I heard someone greet them. Ryan, Hermione, here. Looking down the voice, they saw Harry Potter sitting in the bright sunshine outside the Florence cold drink shop. The table in front of him was piled with quill pens and parchment, and a box of fruit and ice cream. Oh, it's nice to see you again. Hage said in his letter that you will go to Brazil to exchange and study in the first half of this year. Is this true? It's true. A total of 12 students were selected to go to Brazil to exchange. It is said that the Ministry of Magic is going to resume international exchange activities that have been interrupted by the war for more than 10 years, and at the same time demonstrate the similar exchange activities in the future. Harry explained. I really envy that you can go so far away to see if I can't even go to Hogsmeade this year. Harry said in frustration. Your luck is already very good. Longbottom wrote me a letter asking me some questions about summer vacation homework, and at the same time told me that you blow up your aunt during the holiday. In this case, you are not punished. I feel a little weird. After all, according to Longbottom's description, the lightest magic released by minors outside the school also needs a warning. Ryan said seriously. I didn't mean to do this, Harry said. It was just out of control because she insulted my parents so much. Understandable, but it's best to think about it when you do these things in the future. It's just luck that you weren't punished this time, but we can't put all hope on luck. Okay, things are over. Harry is not okay. Ryan looked at Hermione and wanted to preach again, and quickly digressed. We will buy a lot of books this year. I think we should be quicker now. I'll go with you. After all, I've been in this diagonal alley for more than a week. Harry immediately put the paper and pen on the table into the school bag, and then jumped up to lead the way. They first went to the potion shop to replenish potion supplies, and then went to the Madame Mokin robe shop to buy a few new robes, as well as the dress robes needed for this study tour. It has to be said that after entering puberty, everyone grows up very quickly, and the old school uniform has become too short to wear. Even Ryan had to make a new assassin costume for himself in Deathclaw's skin before, and renewed the sleeve sword and hook rope to adapt to the new figure. In particular, the sword uses the metal remaining in the vicinity of the glowing sea burst heart as a raw material after purification, and it is embedded in the rune with gold and silver on craftsmanship. This also gives sword a certain ability to resist magic. Finally, they came to the Lysan bookstore to buy new textbooks. When they went to Brazil to exchange, they would get the textbooks there when they arrived in Brazil. But Ryan and Hermione still need Hogwarts textbooks for self-study. As soon as he walked to the door of Lysan bookstore, Ryan found that an iron cage was now placed in the window where he had placed all kinds of esoteric golden books. In the cage, there are more than 100 large books with green covers and golden titles huddled inside. Entering the bookstore, the manager walked up. Our Hogwarts students come to buy textbooks. Yes, Ryan said. We want 2 monster books for monsters. Lane looked at the book list and said, I really don't know which professor asked for these books. www.mtlnovel.com. When I received the goods, I sent them directly in a cage. It was not easy to pick them up. Not to mention that they have been finished from the time of purchase to the present. Don't enter this kind of book anymore, the manager complained while putting on a pair of very thick gloves, picked up a thick, scarred cane, and walked towards the cage. Ryan perceived the book in the cage with magic, and then suddenly said to the manager, I have a magic that can temporarily stabilize them. Can I try it? The coma spell will definitely not work. It will only irritate them if it is weak, and it will light the book when it is strong. The manager turned his head and looked at Ryan. Are you really sure you can do it? If the book is broken, I will accompany, Lane said vowedly. The manager saw that Ryan was so confident, so he opened his body and made a gesture. Ryan walked to the cage and drew a golden rune in the air with his wand, and then read the mantra in ancient Viking language. Appease. The words fell, and all the books immediately stopped playing, one by one. Lie there at the bottom of the cage and lie quietly. Oh, that's great. You guys come over quickly to bundle all these books. The manager greeted the clerk to bundle the books quickly, and then said to Ryan, I will give you a 30% discount on the 3 of you today. 10 minutes later, the 3 people walked out of the bookstore with the book they bought. Looking at the school bag, they knew that they bought a lot of books. In addition to textbooks, Hermione and Lane also bought several reference books. Even Harry also bought a book related to Quidditch. The happiest thing besides the manager of the bookstore is Ryan, because he received a reminder and received 2 deviations. When they passed by the shop window, they could see that the cage was gone, replaced by a display stand and a stringent monster book of monsters with rope. Chapter 140, Set Off. When everything was about the same, Hermione figured out his wallet and said, You know my birthday in September, this time because I have to leave early in Brazil, so my parents gave me some money to buy for myself for a birthday gift. The budget is a total of 15 gallons. This budget is very loose, Ryan said. You don't give yourself a birthday gift as a book? No, of course not, Hermione denied. I decided to buy a pet. After all, after 2 school years, I was on track for school life. It's time to consider buying a pet to accompany. So the three crossed the street and came to the pet shop called Magic Zoo. The space in the store is very small, and even if every inch of the wall is hung with a cage, it makes the store smelly and noisy. The cries of various animals mixed together and caused a headache because a witch bought a rare bird of paradise in front. The shopkeeper has been teaching the witch how to raise it. In this case, 3 people can only look at the cage in the store boringly. There are many kinds of pets here. The most natural ones are owls and cats, but there are also some uncommon animals, such as a fire crab with a large turtle like a jewel on the back shell and flames constantly spraying behind the buttocks. There is also a bluebird that can constantly transform himself into various flowers. Finally, the shopkeeper gave away the witch who raised the bird of paradise, and then found them waiting for Lion. What do you need? The shopkeeper asked. After some selection, Hermione bought an owl that looks like a huge dark brown feather. The most special thing is that this owl has long-eared feathers on both sides of its head. This is an eagle owl. As she walked out of the pet store, Hermione held the cage and showed them to Ryan. I have been thinking about it between a big orange cat and it for a long time, but I thought of going to study far away this year. For the convenience of communication, I finally chose this big owl that listened to the owner saying that it can fly intercontinentally. Ah, the eagle owl. I know this kind of bird. Some people think that its bone-soaking whine can treat fractures, so kill them. Lane said what he thought. It's terrible. Hermione shook her head. Of course, most countries in the mole world have legislation to capture them as an illegal act. Ryan added. Chatting all the way to the sky, everyone returned to the Broken Cauldron and met Noah and his grandmother in the Broken Cauldron. After seeing them, Mrs. Longbottom stepped forward to shake hands with them, and thanked them for helping Lumpton to make up the class last semester, so that Neville's final semester final exam score was more satisfactory. After a chat, Mrs. Longbottom took Neville to Diagon Alley to buy things. Ryan and Hermione took the subway home after saying goodbye to Harry. Walking out of the subway station and walking on the road, Hermione asked curiously, what magic do you use at the bookstore? Why have I never seen it? That was a horseman's magic, which Wolf taught me. I found that these books have some characteristics of creatures at that time, and I thought about whether I can use this magic to appease life. Anyway, this magic will not fail even if it fails. What's the damage? In the end, you see, I succeeded. Ryan pushed the magic onto the horseman. Anyway, besides himself, Ryan couldn't find a wizard who could fully trust the horseman. Hermione accepted Ryan's explanation and said enviously, horse, a race that can coexist with wizards to this day. I believe they must have their own specialties. In fact, this is an application of ancient magic, with the birth of modern magic. These spells have gradually become rare among human wizards. However, some ancient traces are still intact. It turned out to be the case. It seems that I need to have more access to knowledge. I can't just stare at the books. Hermione nodded suddenly. In the next few days, Ryan packed his luggage at home and sent letters to several classmates of the pureblood family he knew about Castro Bluestar School of Magic. Soon these well-paid classmates wrote back one after another, among which the letter written by Neville was the most detailed. The letter carefully introduced the history of the school and the subjects of the current specialty. However, these detailed and organized contents do not seem to be summed up by Neville himself, but more like the handwriting of Mrs. Longbottom. Think about the old age of Mrs. Longbottom, but also take care of Neville, who is both a father and a mother. Even in order to help Sun Tzu to develop a good relationship with his friends, he wrote these things in person. Ryan also had to sigh with emotion. On August 27th, after a rich breakfast early in the morning, Ryan's family drove off in their SUV. As soon as I turned to the first intersection of the house, I saw Granger's blue Volkswagen RV parked at the intersection. Yesterday the two of them agreed to set off together today. By 9:30, Ryan and they rushed to King's Cross station. So they sat in the cafe at the train station for a while, until the hour hand reaches 10 o'clock. After listening to the parents' advice and hugging farewell reluctantly, Ryan and Hermione pushed the luggage cart into the 9 3/4 platform one after the other. www.mplnovel.com. Maybe it was a little early, except for an old guard on the 9 3/4 platform. In addition, only 2 or 3 students are scattered on the platform or sitting on a bench. But Ryan discovered that they were all senior Slytherin students, so he and Hermione found a bench away from them and took out the ancient magic textbook to start reading. After watching it for a while, Ryan discovered that there are writings of magic texts and pronunciation of magic texts in ancient textbooks of magic texts, but the most important part of the soul is missing. No wonder there are fewer and fewer people in this class. The magic text that can't be infused can only be said to be a special language, and it has no magic effect at all. This kind of magical literature without spirit injection has no practical effect after it is finished. Naturally, This subject has gradually changed from a course based on magic to a less popular course. Ryan feels that the current situation is likely to be a means for the pureblood family to maintain the status of the family. Think about it and know that those families have a high probability of spreading all kinds of ancient magical means of spreading spirits. The little wizards who can only learn from the school can only explore the spirit injection method by simply introducing themselves. Except for some geniuses, most people's methods are far less than the methods summarized by the predecessors of the pureblood family. This naturally achieves the goal of the pureblood monopolizing knowledge and confirming the advantages of the pureblood family. This is consistent with the fact that fighting spells are rarely learned in Hogwarts. Those pureblood families maintain their position in the wizarding world through the control of knowledge. Thinking about some of them. The time passed by half an hour. The students also rushed to the platform one after another. At last a whine came from a distance, and the Hogwarts Express red steam head appeared on the corner track. Chapter 141, The Magical Hogwarts Express. After changing his school uniform according to the regulations, Ryan has been thinking about the previous question. What kind of transportation will Hogwarts use to transport students, so that everyone can cross the vast Atlantic Ocean, bypass half the Earth to reach Castro in South America? He even discussed this issue with Hermione. In the discussion, the phantom shift and the door key were the first to be considered impossible, because Ryan recalled the fact that the two schools were in the original semi-final game, and realized that Hogwarts would not take so much the approach to ostentation. After all, as a prestigious school with 1,000 years of age, it is impossible for such occasions to show off oneself without showing off. Not to mention that both the phantom shift and the door key have limits, otherwise the original Quidditch World Cup viewers can arrive at the same time in a short period of time. Not even someone needs to arrive a few weeks in advance. The second is considered impossible to be a flying carpet, flying broom and flying road net, for the same reason as the first. These things are similar to mole motorcycles and trucks. Can you imagine when the Cambridge-Oxford study tour group exchanges with other schools, the professors and students ride the motorcycles or take the truck in the bucket? The schools in the magic world are not open to the use of mole transportation. Imagine that Hogwarts and his party took a plane to Brazil, and the Castro Bruce school sent someone to pick up a sign at the airport. Ryan felt that the picture was too beautiful to see. In the end, it's nothing more than thinking that Hogwarts will have its own unique means of transportation. But Ryan really did not expect Hogwarts to choose this Hogwarts Express that lacks a sense of history as a means of transportation. Hogwarts quickly stopped on the platform in the sound of steam. Ryan saw Principal Dumbledore, Minister of Magic Fudge, as well as the deans of 4 colleges and several officials of the Ministry of Magic get off the car with a reporter. Seeing them come to the platform, the students quickly stood up and lined up on the platform. Only then did Ryan discover that of the students on the platform, there were only 2 Gryffindor colleges and 2 Hufflepuff colleges, and the rest were 4 Ravenclaws and 4 Slytherins. Sure enough, the examination Gryffindor and Hufflepuff were still a little weaker. Next is Fudge's speech. The whole content is some nonsense that declares the importance of communication and highlights the important role of the Ministry of Magic. Ryan almost fell asleep after listening. Finally, Fudge ended his speech, and Ryan applauded with everyone, and the reporter of the Prophet Daily on the side quickly took the scene with the camera. Next was Dumbledore's speech. The principal's speech was much shorter than that of the minister, and the speech ended in a few minutes. Naturally, Ryan gave more applause to the headmaster than to the minister. After all the speeches are over, it is time for everyone to board the car. This time, the school sent Professor Sprout as the team leader, and Kettleborn, who had just retired this year, as an accompanying professor. Under their leadership, the little wizards took the luggage and boarded the Hogwarts Express. After everyone got into the car from the door of the first car, Lane discovered that the dress in the car was completely different from usual. Usually the boxes on the car disappeared, and the cars became a small public lounge decorated with 4 colors representing the 4 colleges. On the wall hung a large Hogwarts school badge. When everyone just entered the car, they heard the dull collision sound of the door closing. As a whistle sounded, the train slowly drove up the rails. Suddenly a sense of overweight came, and several seniors next to them exclaimed. Ryan looked through the window in the direction of their fingers and was surprised to find that the train had left the track and began to fly into the sky. Think about it too, there is no railway in London to Castro Blue, so the Hogwarts Express must have another way to hurry. Everyone exclaimed but did not know that Hogwarts Express would use this the way to hurry, so I was surprised at the train that suddenly took off. As for the flight itself, it is not so amazing. It is normal for Mr. Weasley to make a flying car by himself. It is also normal for the flying mode to be the crystallization of the wisdom of the entire British magic world. A few minutes later, the Hogwarts Express reached its predetermined altitude and began to fly smoothly. At this time, Professor Sprout also called everyone back from the window to start making arrangements. Well, everyone pay attention. Professor Sprout said to the little wizards below when he saw that everyone had walked into this lounge. You can see that there are 4 representatives at the end of this common lounge. The 4 doors of the college. You go to the corresponding car according to your college. The rooms have been arranged, and everyone's bedroom door has your name. During the time before the departure, you should go to your house to put your luggage away. Then come here together. After listening to the instructions from Sprout's professor, Ryan walked to the door representing Gryffindor and twisted the brass door handle with a roaring lion embossed on the door. The door opened, and Lion was surprised to find that in front of him was the corridor of the train carriage, all decorated with gold and red. He dragged his luggage into the door and found that on the right-hand side was the window glass. www.mplnovel.com. You can see the people standing on the platform through the glass. On the left-hand side is a wall panel with red velvet wallpaper. There is a row of oil lamps for lighting. Through the glass cover, you can see that it is not a flame, but some transparent stones with white light. There are 2 houses in the carriage belonging to Gryffindor College this time, belonging to Ryan and Hermione. Opening the door with his name on the bronze medal and entering the room, Ryan saw that the dormitory was similar to that in Hogwarts, only a little smaller. In the previous letter from Neville, it was mentioned that the Hogwarts Express has 2 types of cars, one of which is used for long-distance travel, but it has not been used for decades. However, Ryan found that neither the lounge just now nor the room now had the sense of ruin that had been placed for decades, but instead was cleaned like yesterday. This should be attributed to the hard-working house elves. At least Ryan felt that the paste on the furniture in the room should only form after a long and careful maintenance. Obviously, this train is regarded as the facade of Hogwarts, not as simple as it seems. Whether it is the lounge and dormitory that seem to be inconsistent with the external space, or the kind of various furnishings in the entire train, it should give people such a sense of harmony. All reflect the heritage of a 1,000-year-old school. When everyone put their luggage and rushed to the lounge, everyone was surprised to find that the coffee table and sofa in the lounge were all gone. A long table occupied the center of the lounge, and the high-back armchairs make the lounge more like Hogwarts Hall. Professor Sprout sat in a chair at the head of the table, and the little wizard said, "Well, everyone sits on the chair. We still have a lot to do on this road." Chapter 142, On the Road. Have something to do? Ryan and the other little wizards looked blank. However, according to the instructions of the professor, he sat on the long table by grade, and then looked at the professor. Professor Sprout waved his wand, and a scroll and a quill appeared in front of everyone. Teachers have already told you that you need to learn Spanish by yourself, so let's take a test to see your results. Thankfully, Ryan has been busy studying magic during this time, and has no time to learn languages at all. But fortunately, Spanish was included in the language memory implantation in the radiation world. Naturally, the open Ryan won the first place in the languages test smoothly. After packing up the papers, Professor Sprout used a wand from behind to direct a blackboard to float in midair, preparing to make up for the lesson. Ryan originally thought that this year's study tour would not only be a class in Castro Bluestar but also self-study Hogwarts textbooks. It was already very busy. For example, on the train, they need to learn etiquette and common herbs and usages in the Amazon, as well as some of the unique attack magic in South America. Attack magic? Isn't this academic exchange? If the etiquette is to avoid rudeness when the 2 sides communicate, and Castro Blue is good at things related to magic plants, it is also useful to know the subject of the other party's specialty in advance. So what's the matter with this last attack magic? Why do you want to fight? Looking at everyone's confusion, Professor Kettleburn knocked his wooden leg with his wand and said, "You are all top students of all grades, so there are some things you need to know. In the wizarding world, the strength. This is an important part. Our principal Dumbledore, as the most powerful white wizard, is one of the important reasons that made our school proud of the heroes in these decades. So this time we are visiting, it is inevitable to learn from other schools. So on the way, I will try my best to teach you some self-protection methods. In the end, I know that some of your colleges are a bit different in the school, but I hope you can stay united in this activity." Ryan thought at this moment that Kettleborn was also a master of death, and had a record of 62 school stays during his tenure. And like Hagrid, he has a soft spot for dangerous magical creatures, and he often makes things happen. This year he successfully retired with only half of his legs and one arm left. If this exchange was not important, Dumbledore asked him to trouble him for another semester. It is estimated that he is now in close contact with the dangerous big guys in the Fire Dragon Reserve in Romania. But this can also be explained from another aspect. Even if he is scarred but being able to survive decades of dealing with dangerous magical creatures, it is likely that the actual combat ability is no less than that of many Elytras. In this case, sending him out as another team leader can clearly explain that this exchange may not be so peaceful. After the first class, they hurriedly ate a meal. The taste of the food is incomparable to that in school, but it is also much better than the box lunch that Lane had eaten on the train in his previous life. For a light meal on the road, this is already very good, far better than eating instant noodles. Professor Sprout went to the front of the car to ask about the driver after the meal, and then told the little wizards that everyone would arrive at Castro Bluestar tomorrow evening. Because the journey time is not long, Both professors tried their best, hoping to put more knowledge into the students' minds. So after the course ended at 9:30 in the evening, each student's face showed an extremely tired expression. After the course, the two professors opened the door and went back to their own room. At this time, a 6th grade Slytherin girl stood up and looked at the badge on her robe to know that she was a class leader. I saw that she walked to the end of the carriage and said to all the students, "I know our college may not be very popular, and we don't like students from other colleges. But this time we all represent Hogwarts, so I hope that in the course of this exchange, everyone can let go of the contradictions in the school. Let us unite and let the students of Castro brush a look at our strength." After the school sister spoke, the car suddenly became quiet. Then a 6th grader from Ravenclaw stepped up, shook her hand and said, "You are right, come on." After that, everyone shook hands with her and made a hateful attitude. When everyone went back to the carriage, they didn't find the two professors standing in a place they couldn't see, and looked at them with comforting eyes. Obviously, the exchange between magic schools is not just communication, but also a competition between magic schools that are not magic schools. Since it is a competition, it will naturally be the winner. So in order to win, students in 4 colleges with serious conflicts in the school began to try to unite together. Although not very harmonious, at least this is a good start. Of course, this situation is also due to the fact that in Ravenclaw and Slytherin colleges with more pureblood, students from large pureblood families are often not aspiring to study and need to spend a lot of energy to build people network. So it is not the best in academics. The few pureblood students who came to exchange this time came from some relatively marginal small families in the wizarding world and did not have such strong racist ideas. In this case, it is easier for everyone to unite than expected. In theory, long-distance travel in the magic world is often a happy thing. www.mplnovel.com. But all the students on this trip did not feel happy. Outside is just boring blue sky and white clouds. There is no scenery to see. It also requires intensive study. In addition, the diet is also very monotonous, and there is no domestic elf who makes delicious food. Fortunately, these days are not long. When the wall clock in the lounge makes music the next day, Professor Sprout told everyone to change into dress gowns because the destination is coming. Lane's dress gown is dark blue. When he changed clothes and walked out of his room, he happened to see Hermione walking out of the next room. She wore a goose yellow robe, which made her look more sunny than before. When I came to the common room, I saw Professor Sprout standing there in a brown silk robe and shouted. Everyone stood in 2 rows according to grade, and then followed Professor Kettleborn and me in the formation to get off. "Now you can check your clothes with each other again to confirm that there is no problem." Then Professor Sprout called Janko and another 5th grade Slytherin boy from the team and asked them to carry a silver instrument that Lane did not even know, and told them that after the 2 professors gave a gift, they will give these gifts to the president of Castro Bruce. It turns out that even in the magic world, there is a habit like the Muggle world to exchange gifts for each other. Fortunately, the overall value of the wizarding world is not low, so Professor Sprout can also choose representatives whose appearance will not detract from Hogwarts' image. When everyone was impatient after 10 minutes, everyone could feel that the train stopped slowly, and then a feeling of weightlessness came. A few minutes later, with some shock, the carriage completely stopped. This should be the arrival of Castro Brush. Chapter 143, Castro Bluestar. Because of the sudden shock just now, many students did not stand firm. Fortunately, there is something about the assassin heritage that Ryan obtained about the activities on the sailboat, which allowed him to help Hermione almost fall on the ground while maintaining his balance. Everyone else grabbed something next to fix themselves at that time, but there was still an unlucky egg that fell directly to the ground. Fortunately, there is no window in this lounge, otherwise it will definitely be lost. But from here, Ryan also understands why after the transportation of the other 2 schools in the Triwizard Tournament stops, everyone in it will come down after a while. After everyone finished grooming and followed the professor out of the car door, Ryan heard the low cry of the students around him. Most of the students have only been to a magical school in Hogwarts before. Naturally, they also think that the beautiful castle by the Alma Mater is the greatest building in their minds. But after seeing the building of the Castro Bruce College, they felt that they were still somewhat ill-informed, because the building in front of this school is not as great as Hogwarts Castle. The place where they are now is a highland by the river. The broad river bends in a high ground and rushes away into the distance. Looking from the highlands to the surrounded by an endless jungle, a faint white mist erupted from the jungle, making the highlands where they were like floating in the clouds. The Castro Bruce College is located on this high ground. The building of the college is made of golden stone. It is a tall square building, much like a temple in ancient South America. The buildings shone in the light of the setting sun. At this time, I also noticed that the students in green robes on the opposite side were looking at the Hogwarts Express behind them with surprised eyes. Obviously, this opening ceremony gave both parties a deeper understanding of each other. Under the leadership of the 2 professors, they lined up to the welcoming team opposite. Then Ryan took out their wands and stood on their chests, saluting each other with the wizards who were welcome across from them. After presenting gifts to 2 students at Hogwarts, The headmaster of Castro Brushard began his welcome speech. Fortunately, as you know in advance, at Castro Bruce College, English is a common language. Their principal used English when he gave the welcome speech. At the same time, the occasional voice from the students on the opposite side can also confirm that their English usage is not low. Finally, after a series of speeches, the headmaster of Castro Brucio announced that the restaurant was ready for the welcome party. I hope visitors from afar can enjoy a good meal. At this time, Ryan was refreshed, and the fatigue caused by the jet lag was wiped out. At the same time, he noticed that the students on the opposite side were suddenly energized. It seems that this long Mandarin is not welcomed by everyone. It may be due to the time difference, or it may be that too many courses along the way cause everyone to be a little tired. In short, Hogwarts students entered the Castro Bruce Hall in a groggy state. After sitting down at the table, the flavor of the dishes on the table made everyone awake. Because there are only 2 days left before school, only a few student representatives and professors come to the school. So the hall was empty. In the original 6-row table, only the one closest to the table was seated. But although there are not many dishes due to the small number of people, as their principal said, today is just a temporary welcome to guests from far away, and the formal banquet will be held once again when the school starts. But this does not mean that the quality of the dishes has decreased. For example, a whole roasted Amazon river fish now placed in front of Ryan can be seen that the roasted outer crisp is tender and the inside is just right. There are also plenty of local fruits on the side. The taste has a special fresh sweetness, which is much more delicious than the bland marine fish in Britain. More importantly, this roasted tambaki thorn is carefully removed for easy consumption. On the table there are local-style barbecues, various fruit pies and other delicacies. In addition, there are some hometown dishes prepared for British guests coming from afar. Perhaps because of a problem with understanding, these hometown dishes are a bit strange, such as fish and potato chips and dark dishes haggis. Overall, however, the dinner was very sumptuous, and Ryan could feel the welcome of Castro Brucio to guests coming from afar. After everyone had filled their stomachs, the Hogwarts teachers and students returned to the camp on the Castro Bruce's open space, which was the carriage of the Hogwarts Express. Ryan found that the red front is no longer here. According to Professor Sprout's explanation, the front needs to return to the UK overnight to prepare to send the students to school, and will not come back to pick you up until the exchange is over. After returning to the lounge, Professor Sprout told everyone that Castro Bruce also started school on September 1. www.mplnovel.com, so the next 2 days will be the time for free communication with their student representatives. Classmates can use their abilities not to embarrass Hogwarts. In view of the jet lag that caused everyone to be tired now, Professor Sprout quickly ended his speech and let everyone rest. Ryan returned to the carriage and said goodnight to Hermione, and then walked into his dormitory and simply cleaned up. Almost going to bed, probably tired, Ryan couldn't sleep in bed for a long time. So he simply went into deep meditation to let the soul enter the Emerald and Emerald Dream, and used this method to rest fully. As soon as she entered the Emerald Dream, Lane discovered that she actually appeared on a square of a small Castro Bruce college. What is important is that she found that he was not alone. In the center of the square, the headmaster and several students were talking under the totem pole in the square, probably because there is no outsider who can enter the Emerald Dream for a long time. And Ryan, who has been baptized in nature, can easily hide himself in the Emerald Dream, so they did not find an extra person on the square beside the totem pole. Lane also took the opportunity of their discussion to slip out of the square. After stepping out of the gate of the square, Ryan thought about it and thought that Castro Bruce College might have a way to enter the Emerald Dream, which improved the affinity of the school members for nature, so he could be unique in the training of magic plants. Thinking about the solitary tower in the Emerald Dream corresponding to Hogwarts, and then looking at the magnificent buildings here at the Castro Blue Master College, Lane suddenly felt that he didn't know enough about the magic world. The novels I read in my life show at most the corner of this magical world, and in order to truly understand the truth of this world, Ryan feels that he still needs to do a lot. Chapter 144, The First Exchange. Because of the discovery of a secret of the Castro Blue Master Academy, Ryan did not dare to stay in the Emerald Dream for a long time. For safety reasons, he did not dare to go around the building complex, nor dare to go to the jungle in the distance. I just left the Emerald Dream after looking at the surrounding environment. After returning from the Emerald Dream, Ryan suddenly felt a little afraid. He originally thought that Hogwarts was just the thing written in the novel, so he thought about using the gold finger to make a big fuss in the British magic world to get the offset point. Only after weighing the pros and cons, out of moral ideas and cautious habits, gave up this idea. It now appears that the water of the magic world is much deeper than that described in previous life novels, and those ideas at that time were purely seeking death. This also shows from the side that being a good person is really important. Sometimes your heartfelt choice will inadvertently save your life. It seems that each of the region's top magic schools will have its own characteristics and advantages. This allowed Ryan to converge on what he thought was a bit arrogant after getting a lot of adventures. It seems that we still need to be careful in the future. Fortunately, After traveling in this emerald dream, Lane's heart calmed down. He soon fell asleep in his comfortable big bed. Early the next morning, Ryan was awakened by the flowing sound of the river. As he climbed up from the bed and pulled back the curtains, he looked at the reckless primitive rainforest beyond the window. He realized that he was not in the British Isles, but came to Brazil's Amazon rainforest across half the earth. I didn't hear a sound of the river running when I went to bed last night. This may be the cancellation of the soundproof magic on the carriage in the morning and let everyone get up. After washing, he came to the common room. Ryan found that several classmates had read books here. After all, today and tomorrow are free time for communication. No one wants to be timid in front of students from other schools. After looking around the lounge for a while, Ryan took his notebook and sat on the edge of the only Hermione he knew. As soon as I sat down, I heard Hermione chanting a few spells, gestures, and spellcasting points. Ryan did not disturb her when he saw this, but took out his notebook and began to try to break up a spell, extracting the basic magic text and changing it. This is a long and tedious job, but it can also be rewarding. At least try and discover that if several proper spells were combined, they could be able to derive all kinds of incredible effects from ordinary spells, such as the flame python released in the Battle of the Dumbledore Ministry of Magic or trapping Voldemort. The foundation of these magic is based on the flexible arrangement and combination of existing magic. Of course, the current level of Elaine can only be analyzed to this step. Dumbledore's knowledge is not what he can reach. If Dumbledore can arrange various combinations of magic and use it skillfully, Ryan still has a long way to go. However, Ryan also has some of his own achievements. For example, after he reached the level of senior students in his magic, he tried to analyze some simple magic under the guidance of the Nordic heritage knowledge in his mind. In the analysis, he was surprised to find that although the spells circulated in the United Kingdom are all from the Latin family, the basic magic script composed of them is based on the Nordic rune runes, and the Phoenician Greek Latin runes around the Mediterranean. The text is composed as a supplement. Ryan deeply doubted that this might be because after Britain accepted the two civilizations, Archmage Merlin rearranged these things and laid the foundation for today's magic spell. Later, because this system is convenient and easy to use, it has become a universal magic in Europe and America until today. Because the basic composition of the magic spell is Niven, Ryan, who masters Niven, will successfully analyze the fluorescent flash and disarming spell during this time, and combine them to create the first spell Flash Disarm. Although this magic requires more magic power than the sum of the two magics, it also requires more elaborate magic control when released. However, this magic can explode at the same time when the disarming magic is released, causing the opponent to be dazzled, which is more conducive to disarming the opponent's weapon. After analyzing the spell for a while, Professor Sprout came to the lounge. Seeing that everyone had arrived and taught herself quietly, she nodded in satisfaction, then clapped her hands. When everyone's attention was attracted by her, she announced today's itinerary to everyone. After breakfast, everyone will have free exchanges with representatives of the Castro Bluestar Academy, and after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, everyone will go to the auditorium for a networking event. After listening to Professor Sprout's arrangement, Hermione found Ryan sitting opposite him. Walking on the way to the school restaurant, Hermione asked in surprise, "When did you come from, Zai? I didn't see you when I came out at 7:30. You are too fascinated by learning. I sat opposite you 5 minutes after you, but you were reading a book at the time and didn't pay attention to me." "Ah, that's sorry. I was a little nervous today because of the need to communicate with Castro Bruscio's representative." "It's okay, just treat it with ordinary heart. I believe that even here, there will be no students of the same age who can beat you in learning. You don't have to worry so much." After breakfast, everyone sat in the auditorium and started to communicate. Naturally, the main force of this situation is the 6th grade seniors, and the 4th grade seniors occasionally interject to say a few words. www.mtlnovel.com Lane. Their lower grade students can't say anything on this occasion, just listen carefully, just speak. The discussion in the morning was mainly about curses and transformations, but the seniors on both sides hoped to overwhelm each other. So soon the content of the exchange quickly turned to Ryan. These esoteric content that these young students did not understand. After sitting for a while like listening to the heavenly book, Lane chose to give up. At this time, he also found that the other junior students around him were the same no matter what school, but Castro Brusio students were sitting there squinting, looking a little cold. Ryan didn't want to waste time like this, so he began to try to communicate with other students of the same lower grades. At this time he saw that the tall, thin 3rd grade boy from Castro Brus had sat upright, but his eyes were squinting everywhere. So he whispered, "Hey, can you understand what the classmates say?" "Why do I think I don't understand?" The student on the other side was also out of the sky, only to hear Ryan's words. What were you talking to me just now?" Ryan found that he had a strong Spanish accent in English, so he switched to Spanish and said the previous words aside, and the other person understood. He said happily in Spanish, "Your Spanish speaks as proficient as your mother tongue, so we will have no problem communicating. I have been worried that my English is not good enough to affect communication. Ryan nodded in agreement after hearing it. Language barrier is one of the biggest troubles during this interracial communication. I just don't know why Harry Potter's world doesn't have the magic of translating or knowing the language as directly as some worlds. Chapter 145, Problems and Solutions. Soon, a few lower grade students gathered around and spoke to Ryan in one mouth to know what was going on. Although Castro is known for bilingual teaching, English is the second language. For the teaching effect, the professors still give lectures in the popular Spanish. This has led to those outstanding senior students who have studied English for the purpose of international exchange and can communicate, but the junior students cannot. This is also the reason why they seemed so cold just now. They couldn't understand what to say and were told by professors not to be embarrassed. Therefore, they can only sit upright and naturally look very cold. Now after discovering Ryan, a Spanish-speaking peer, they immediately gathered around and talked. It seems that the time just listening to the heavenly book is quite painful for everyone. At this time, they were completely out of the coldness they had just shown, and they showed the passionate nature of the Latin American people at once. Soon, Hogwarts sophomores and juniors who were bored were also attracted. It happened that there was also a third-year Aboriginal girl in Castro who had good English. With the help of two translators, the junior students of the two schools could finally start their own communication. Because the overall level of the selected student representatives is good, everyone soon began academic exchanges. Because there are many deficiencies in the theoretical study of the lower grade students, everyone simply took out the wand and used practical operations to explain the problem. During the exchange, they learned that although Castro's students were influenced by Europe, they also used magic wands. But in addition to magic wands, they are also good at using some magical equipment related to magical creatures. For example, in the demonstration, they held the leaves of different colors in their left hands to change the material and color of the cups in front of them, without having to do this by carefully constructing a magic model in their minds like Ryan did. It's just that they admit that this kind of casting is very cumbersome. For example, the leaves can only be deformed against wood and paper, and if they are metal cups, they need various stones as props. In short, this kind of magic is simpler to get started, but its versatility is not as good as those of Europe and America. Okay, now construct your magic according to these magic nodes in your mind. After the construction is completed, read the spell to mobilize the magic, Ryan said, while drawing a schematic diagram in the air with his wand. Ha! I succeeded. The thin third-year boy named David cheered after successfully turning the wooden cup in front of him into a tin cup. This way, the next time you go to catch the bird, you won't have to be discovered by the professors because you are carrying the twine. After talking, David suddenly realized that he was communicating with foreign students, so he smiled embarrassedly at Ryan, and Ryan returned a smile. He felt that the atmosphere of this school was really suitable for the Weasley twin brothers, but unfortunately they didn't come this time, which is really regrettable. After that, Ryan also learned the technique of using other items to cast spells under David's instructions. This is not easy, at least for British wizards who are used to casting spells with magic wands. It is really difficult to distract. Ryan saw that Hermione next to him had been taught by a black girl to use other items to cast spells, but unfortunately every time she cast spells, she subconsciously ignored the things in her left hand. This is because it is not so easy to change after a long time of habit development. However, after experimenting for 2 or 3 times, Ryan successfully used leaves to change the material and pattern of the wooden cup in front of him. This surprised David, and praised Ryan for his good understanding. However, Ryan did not think it was because of his genius, but because this magic release method was very similar to the material casting in Viking magic, except that the consumables were turned into auxiliary casting items. So after mastering the key point of using 1 heart and 2 uses, just trying Ryan once or twice to learn this magic. One morning time passed quickly, when I finished my lunch and returned to the dormitory lunch break, Brazil due to the tropical climate. The lunch break here from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock to avoid the hottest time. But the evening course ends it will be an hour late. Ryan found everyone depressed, and it seemed that every student felt frustrated here. Among them, the younger the students, the worse the mood. After all, the magical power learns the same way, and they can always come up with a wealth of knowledge to solve the problem after they reach the upper grades. This is really a big blow for everyone who leads the school. But ugliness is not a problem for classmates after all. Except for the pre-trained openers like Ryan, how can other students go through a few hours of learning, compared to local students who have studied at least 1 year from the basics? This kind of magic learning, which is different in the civilization system, has a higher level of learning. It is already a genius expression like Hermione to reluctantly learn to use this technique of using auxiliary equipment to cast spells at the end. Even if she only changed the color of less than a third of the cup. Soon Professor Sprout walked into the lounge with a smile on her face. From her expression, she could see that as a herbal medicine professor, she had gained a lot after interacting with her peers in this herbal medicine specialty school. Upon seeing the students feeling low and backward, Professor Sprout immediately understood the reason. She put the flower pot in her hand on the ground and said, "The purpose of our communication is to be able to learn from each other's strengths and weaknesses. Q. Think of you as Hogwarts top students. How can you easily concede defeat?" Soon after an hour of rest, everyone came to the lounge consciously and began to discuss the problems encountered today, using collective efforts to overcome those problems. Until 2:50 in the afternoon, Professor Kettleburn came to inform everyone that they needed to go to the networking event, but the place was transferred from the auditorium to the garden behind the school. Because the location changed, everyone hurried back to the dormitory to change clothes. After all, dress robes are really not suitable for activities in that half-wild garden. As Ryan rushed to her room in Hermione's room, he heard Hermione whispering complaints about these unreliable South Americans. It is true for romantic South Americans to make temporary changes to the plan on a whim, but this is really unacceptable to the old-fashioned British. After quickly changing into work clothes, everyone went to the garden under the leadership of two professors. Castro Bruscow's garden is also very famous in the magic world. At the earliest time, the garden was just the primitive jungle on this small highland. After the school was established, the entire highland was protected by magic, and naturally included this small jungle. After the transformation of teachers and students from generation to generation, many local magic plants were transplanted into the forest. At the same time, all the unpleasant or potentially dangerous things in this forest were cleaned up. After hundreds of years of construction finally turned this piece of primitive forest into a beautiful magic garden. From the square, there is a cobblestone path leading to this garden. After passing this path and bypassing the college buildings, everyone finally saw this legendary garden. Chapter 146, Legend Garden. The magic world can be called a legendary person or thing, and this garden is one of them. When Castro Bruce College was just established, this land was popular with various brutal blood sacrifices and related magic, and this kind of school that gathered a lot of little wizards without resistance quickly became the target of those evil wizards. Even if the first principal is the strongest wizard in the Amazon rainforest, he still loses his face in the face of a large number of evil wizards. Over time, the killing of the little wizard becomes a high probability event, but once a little wizard is killed, the principal's ideal of building a school will also be ruined. This brutal reality annoys the first principal of Castro Bruce. In this case, the irritable principal even burned herbs to observe the starry sky and tried to divination the future. The result came to this jungle unconsciously during a divination starry sky, and then fell into a hole directly because of neglecting the feat only by paying attention to the sky. This also made him create the most important big creation in the history of the school, which is today known as the premises of the underground cave groups of the Castro Bluestar garden. Since this piece of land is evenly scattered with debris stone fragments, although the distribution is too scattered and has no refined value, it can just cover up the secrets hiding under the magic reconnaissance. Later, in the sight of the evil wizard, the school dissipated for 30 years. 30 years later, the wizards accumulated by Castro Bruce suddenly attacked and swept away the dirt on the land. Since then this park has become a legend. After listening to this legend, the little wizards of Hogwarts also came to the entrance of the park. The entrance of this legendary park is very simple, no different from the entrance of the Hogwarts Forbidden Forest. The only thing that can show that it is different from the ordinary forest is that the pebble road and entrance where everyone looks are very cute. It was a capybara, a local unique animal. At the time of the most difficult time, our ancestors lived through that difficult day by breeding capybara and growing mushrooms. Inspected the pair of statues, and a male middle-aged black-haired professor who walked out of the garden explained to them. "By the way, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Ferdinand Gonzalez. I am a professor of herbal medicine and the chief magical plant maker of Castro Brush. I am very excited to see you here. You can call I'm Professor Ferdinand." This professor, who looks a little fat and wears glasses with a mustache and a kind face, introduces himself while leading everyone in the front. Entering the park, the cobblestone path of the Prime Minister quickly turned into a soft green moss road straight into the forest. Seeing the little wizards a little hesitant, Professor Ferdinand smiled and walked up the path to say hello. "Don't worry about the moss that tramples the road. They are called to step on the death in the local native language. Even if the dragon stands above it, it will not die. It has been used as a buffer in every Quidditch World Cup in the past 100 years. The turf is them." After listening to the professor's explanation, everyone stepped on this path alertly. As soon as they stepped on these moss, Ryan felt a soft touch under his feet, just like stepping on top handmade carpets. Along the path, there are various plants growing on both sides of the road, and you can see many magic plants growing in it. For example, the bellflower that grows on the side of the road and blooms like a light blue flower in the shape of a wine cup, and the metal collision sound can be heard when the wind blows. Or for example, the branches covered with big red flowers span the road and emit a kind of an infamous tropical tree with an attractive fragrance. Finally, after walking for 5 or 6 minutes in a narrow hole covered with a kind of mushrooms that glowed as you blew, there was finally an open mind, and a small grassy valley appeared in front of everyone. "It's pretty." Hermione put her fists in front of her chest, and her eyes seemed to be alert. Most of the other girls on the team had similar expressions on their faces, although the boys are a little embarrassed to express their hobbies, but the suddenly swift eyes can clarify everyone's hobbies here. The ground of the whole valley is covered with soft green moss, and there are many tall tropical trees. There is a small pond in the middle of the valley, into which all the streams that flow down from the mountain flow. The water in the pond is very clear. You can see the bottom of the pool covered with pebbles and water plants at a glance. The only artificial buildings in the entire valley are concentrated around the pond. At the entrance to the pond is a large stone buried in the ground, and the upper part is chiseled into a stone platform for movement. Now several students and teachers of Castro are installing a stove in the middle of the platform, and arranged a dozen square tables with snow-white linen tablecloths and fruits around the stove. After approaching, Hogwarts teachers and students created a lot of iron picks and steel forks on the ground in addition to the stove, and a variety of shamanic spices were kept in a box next to them. It seems that this afternoon's fraternity games will continue until the evening. The school has prepared a South American-style barbecue party for the guests who come from the original way. Of course, in this fairy tale and pretty environment, the barbecue is always a bit strange. But as the saying goes, there is nothing that cannot be solved by a barbecue. If there is, it will be 2 meals. After saying hello, everyone started looking for a chat partner freely, and then they sat together in a cool place under a big tree to start a discussion. Ryan is here with him and Hermione, as well as a second-year student from Hufflepuff and a group of 3 lower-level Castro students. Castro took the lead in the tall boy named David who exchanged with Ryan in the morning. He stepped forward and shook hands with Ryan. I am very excited to discuss magic with you this afternoon. This morning's discussion has benefited us a lot. Since the students of Hogwarts just walked a lot in the tropical sunlight, they greeted everyone to take some fruit to quench their thirst. As we all know, the appearance and taste of tropical fruits are often far more diverse than fruits in other places, especially in the magic world. For example, Ryan is now overwhelmed with a red clue-like fruit. www.mplnovel.com. This fruit is like a red rope with the thickness of the index finger shaped like an apple, and the skin is up to the bark. Not as tough. I don't think it tastes edible. The most exaggerated thing is that when Ryan holds it in his hand, he can feel it moving. Seeing the embarrassed expressions of the British wizards, David suddenly realized, this is a snake fruit, which is also very valuable to us because the preservation time is only 6 hours. Few wizards outside South America know it. In fact, this thing is very simple to eat. After talking, David brought a pot of water to the table with a silver basin, then got some salt in the water from the condiment bottle next to it, and finally soaked the snake fruit in the salt water. Soon, Yanshigo stretched out. David grabbed a sprig with leaves on it and bite off, and then began to suck. As he sucked, the fruit quickly shriveled down. This thing is sucking and eating. You also try. David warmly invited. Chapter 147, Garden Exchange. Under David's enthusiastic invitation, Ryan also tried a flamboyant fruit. Biting the fruit, a sweet and sour juice filled the entire mouth. Although it tastes good, Ryan felt that if it were just like this, the snake would not be able to afford the precious adjective. Thinking, the juice flowing into the throat suddenly burned, like a line of fire from the throat to the stomach. Ryan could feel the heat flow from the body into the limbs and corpses, removing all the heat from the body. Swept away a lot of physical discomfort since I was here. Then a gust of wind blew away, and Ryan felt some long-lost coolness. This is a good thing. It can remove the discomfort caused by the damp heat in the body, and you should also avoid heat stroke. So you also eat a little. Lane slowed down and said to the next Hermione and the second-year Hufflepuff student, awesome. David gave Ryan a thumbs up. We are of this age. For the first time, eating snake fruit can feel its special effects so accurately. Not many people, since you can see that your herbalism it must be good. Indeed, Ryan is sometimes even called by our school doctor Mrs. Pomfrey to be an assistant. Hermione took a deep breath after eating snake fruit and looked a little more energetic than before. He answered after hearing David's words. Using this topic as an introduction, the two sides began to discuss the issue of herbal medicine. Castro is worthy of the faculty known as herbalism and magical biology, and even the junior students can make some points that have never been seen in herbalism textbooks. Fortunately, Ryan received David's lifelong efforts in plant research, and at the same time gained valuable practical experience in the process of nurturing Xiaoqing, which allowed him to have a back and forth with David in the discussion. There is timidity here, but for others, the content of their discussions is still a bit esoteric. Ryan tried very hard to explain the current problems about magic plants to the two people around him, but they still looked confused. After all, they discussed some details and various operation skills in actual operation. This is indeed a bit difficult for Hogwarts junior students with insufficient experience in herbal medicine classes, because many tricks in the operation cannot be found in the book at all, only through actual operation to understand. But as a top student at Hogwarts, At least have the good habit of asking if you don't understand. Ryan saw that both Hermione and the Hufflepuff student took out their own books and began to record the knowledge points that Ryan had in their discussions. Because in order to communicate smoothly, everyone discussed in Spanish. Therefore, Ryan needs to spend some effort to translate the communication content into English for his classmates to understand. This also allowed Ryan to feel scorching in his throat when more than half of the discussion time had passed in the afternoon. Fortunately, this is Castro Brusuo. There may not be many other things, but various herbs will not be lacking. Ryan thought about using simple natural feelings to find the herbs found in the surroundings, and after taking some medicinal fruits from the table, he borrowed a crucible from the stove and began to brew the potion. When Ryan started to boil medicines, his actions quickly attracted the attention of many people. After all, due to the current environment and the fruits brought by them, most students naturally chose herbal medicine as a means of communication. The content of the exchange. As we all know, the Castro Blue School has a great advantage in the study of magical animals and magical plants, which has led to the disadvantage of Hogwarts students in the discussion just now. Looking at the complacent look of the two accompanying professors on Castro Brusuo on the stone platform, the big guy soon knew that this was a deliberately set by them to show their strength. However, at this time, Hogwarts students also have some difficulties in riding a tiger. After all, diverging the topic will make them not only academically unable to lose. So one afternoon they only watched Castro Brusuo students showing off in front of them. It's just that Ryan's group, because Ryan relies on the ability to have a plug-in to discuss with the students on the opposite side, so naturally he didn't notice the embarrassment of other students. Now Ryan suddenly started to boil pharmaceuticals, and Hogwarts students finally took a breath and found an excuse to get rid of the current disadvantages. Under the eyes of all eyes, Lane handled the raw materials like a cloud of water and controlled the fire skillfully. This set of actions stunned the little wizards who were watching. After all, they had seen similar scenes, but they were often among pharmacists with more than 10 years of experience. Seeing Ryan, a rookie who had only been exposed to potions for 2 years, could reflect this situation, and the word genius emerged from the onlooker student center. After all, except for this, they can't explain Ryan's skillful operation process. It's just that Ryan knew he wasn't a genius at all, only that he had passed on a Chinese medicine tradition through the Wanji grocery store. Although the Chinese medicine was only at the upper middle level, he had at least learned medicine for decades with a master at the level of a doctor, and the most he did in the decades of studying medicine was to help the master catch medicine and decoction. Fortunately, the raw material processing and manufacturing of magic potions have a lot in common with traditional Chinese medicine. Therefore, after absorbing the inheritance of this Chinese medicine, Ryan, after a simple change, took advantage of a series of experiences and tips on making potions. Naturally, this inheritance is not perfect. At school, Ryan was criticized by Snape for being too rigid and lacking the important aura in the production of potions. So it is difficult to make perfect potions. However, for the little wizards who are watching, reading www.uukanzu.com is a great achievement to be able to skillfully cook a pot of excellent potions. So Ryan ended up distributing a medicine to everyone in a group of admiring eyes. Fortunately, Ryan thought of this situation and brewed a big pot of medicine, so that everyone who needed it could get a copy. After drinking this anti-swelling medicine, Hogwarts students naturally turned to the topic of potions, in which Hogwarts students are better than Castro Brutus students. After all, it is a luxury to hire a young potion master as a potion professor. When a potion master carefully teaches and treats all kinds of disgusting potion materials as pressure, students naturally take potions. There is not a low level of study in the class. In the wizarding world, potion masters have always been a profession that is much less than demand. Especially young potion masters often choose to make the most of their time to improve their access to resources, and often only older potion masters when there is little hope of breakthrough. I choose to return to school to teach and train young people, but their age also determines that they cannot do as much energy as young people to train students. Professor Snape of Hogwarts is a special case, because he chose to stay in school for some things, which also led to the improvement of the overall potion level of Hogwarts students. Consider that in the ordinary level wizard test, even Neville, a student who is inferior in potions, can pass this exam. This is very indicative of Professor Snape's level. Sure enough, the Hogwarts students had the upper hand in the discussion of potions later, and some face was saved. After returning to the car at the end of the final campfire barbecue party, Professor Sprout praised Ryan for his glory for Hogwarts. Although Ryan felt that he was just a coincidence, he should not be praised. Chapter 148, Day 1. The second day of free communication was similar to the first day, but after the discussion in the morning, everyone visited the important underground cave group under the garden in the afternoon. Everyone can feel the coolness completely different from the ground when they enter the cave. The structure of the whole cave is complex. Different caves have different functions. For example, there is a small one-person high cave used for personnel communication, and it is also as large as a basketball court. Great cave of the class. There are also caves of moderate size that were used as classrooms for teaching. There is also a clear underground river at the bottom of the cave, which can not only provide enough water for the people in the cave, but also use a sealed boat to go out along the underground river in the river channel 10 kilometers away. But as the school moved to the ground after the crisis was lifted, this underground system was mostly sealed up as an emergency backup for the school. At present, only a part of the cave near the ground is still in use, some of which are used as classrooms for special courses, and the other part is used as an underground farm and breeding farm to provide food and medicinal plants and animals. For example, Ryan saw a large mushroom house with many edible mushrooms. After all, here is different from Hogwarts. Castro Brusos, located in the depths of the Amazon rainforest, is far away from the human gathering area, and it is not very convenient for foreign shopping. The inconvenience of transportation and the special history of school building. So farming has also become a major feature of this school. Ryan, for example, the mushrooms they had in the barbecue party last night came from a mushroom garden in this underground tunnel group. After 2 days of free communication, the time came to September 1st, and the time for the new semester began. Ryan and they attended the opening ceremony as special guests, and Hogwarts students were placed on a long table representing freshmen. Castro Brusso has 3 colleges: the Blood College leaning towards fighting, the Feather Snake College leaning towards academics, and the Giant Wood College leaning towards basic and time operations. However, unlike the Hogwarts School of Admissions, Castro Bruce was assigned to different colleges after the end of the first grade, according to the students' expertise in different disciplines. So there are 4 long tables in the school hall, representing the freshmen and 3 colleges. Ryan. They sat on the newly grown table with the fewest people as guests from afar. After the principal's simple opening speech, the banquet began. The opening banquets of all schools are the same. The banquets at the Castro Bruce College showcase a large number of local delicacies, including Peruvian roast beef and large skewers of Brazilian barbecue. There are also jungle specialities such as deep-fried insects and grilled crocodiles. In addition, in order to express welcome to guests from afar, a lot of British-style food was added to the school banquet. But Ryan felt that no matter whether it was fish and chips or haggis compared with the delicious on the table, it was difficult to be called bigmy. When the staple food on the table became a dessert, the atmosphere in the auditorium slowly warmed up. During the exchange, Ryan learned that there are also special ceremonies for new students entering school. It's just that compared with Hogwarts's ritual of feeling the heavy sense of history, the entrance ceremony for freshmen here seems more exciting. The little wizards will take a giant canoe towed by Goldarrow from the pier of the wizard town a few kilometers downstream of the river next to the school, and finally climb up the highlands where the school is located along hundreds of steps, go to the school gate and follow the path into the auditorium. Finally, when everyone ate the dessert almost, the school banquet was over. Everyone hurried back to the dormitory to take a good rest to prepare for the first class after tomorrow's semester. Early the next morning, Ryan got up early. These exchange students are taught according to Castro Bruscio's curriculum of the same grade, and the first morning of the school starts the 3rd grade. The Castro Blue Master course is divided into public courses and elective courses. In addition to the 1st grade, each age has its own elective courses. Some elective courses are unique to a certain college, and Ryan, as exchange students, are allowed to choose the elective courses they want to study, not restricted by the college. Similarly, the 2 professors led by Hogwarts will also open an elective course for Castro Brusio students during this time. Since it is completely unclear about the teaching situation here, everyone discussed last night that everyone in each grade would choose the same course. If there is any problem in this way, everyone can discuss with each other to avoid being unable to keep up with the progress of the class because of unfamiliarity. Because of this, after having breakfast, Lane went to the 1st floor of the classroom on the 2nd floor with Hermione and Daphne Greengrass of Slytherin College at the entrance of the auditorium. Along the way, they met a lot of slap-sized furry humanoid creatures. They are the unique creature of Castro Bluestar Capilla. As Ryan passed through the corridor, a group of Capillae tried to smash a huge mushroom on their heads. Fortunately, Ryan promptly used the disarming spell to hit the mushroom in advance. www.mplnovel.com. The big mushroom fell on the ground and exploded, and the green slime inside splashed around. Oh, it's them again. Don't they have any activities other than throwing stinky mushrooms? Confinement. Now this luck is good. If it is April, the smoke fruit they lost is the most troublesome. With the sound of a spell that had never been heard, a wheat-skinned mulatto girl waved his wand to gather the slime in the hallway, and then threw it into the trash can. Only then did Ryan discover that a group of people came up the stairs in the hallway, and suddenly a hello came from among them. Good morning, Ryan. What class are you here for? Hearing this greeting, Ryan realized that the leader of the group opposite was David, who had a great time discussing with them in a group the other day, so he replied, "Good morning. We are here today at the Blood Academy's combat lesson is now going to the classroom." After talking about Ryan, he discovered that David's school uniform had a symbol composed of a drop of blood, a wand and a book. So he asked curiously, "Are you a student of Fresh Blood Academy?" David had just answered, and the girl who had just chanted the man answered, Of course, David is not only a student of the Blood Academy, but also a third-year leader of the Blood Academy and a 2-year Witch Duel champion in this year. Cousin, what the champion is the glory of the past. There is no need to hang it often, David said helplessly to the girl. After finishing talking, invite them to say, I think you are the first time to come to the classroom. Maybe it's not easy to find it. It's just that we can go along together. Lane is very happy that the first class will be so smooth on the way to class, which is a good sign. Chapter 149, Castro Bruce Fighting Lesson. When Ryan walked into the classroom with a group of people, he was surprised to find that it was completely different from Hogwarts Black Magic Defense class classrooms, with no blackboard, no projector, and even no desks and chairs. A lot of obstacles were set up throughout the classroom, making it like a maze. Ryan even saw several gaps in the classroom walls leading to the classroom next door. Through the gaps, he could see that several other classrooms had a similar layout to this one. Everyone got together so that I could see each of you. A voice came from behind a plant. Bypassing this plant, a burly middle-aged male professor stood on a half-stump and shouted to the little wizards underneath, I know there are exchange students coming to our class to study today, so I hope you will allow me to introduce a little bit what are we going to do today. I believe there are some students who don't know, and you can take advantage of this opportunity to listen. Of course, students who know, I allow you to take a break when I speak. Last year, we spent a whole year practicing how to cast spells, how to avoid, and how to defend in a witch fight. And this year we will add more complex and closer to actual combat variables, such as different environments, surrounding conditions, etc. So I now turning the classroom into a labyrinth, let you feel how to adopt the most appropriate fighting method in different environments. Now in the maze in front of you, there are many puppets that can automatically launch magic, and there are also many aggressive plants. Your task in this class is to use all the power you have to get me to be placed in the center of the maze. Golden Acorn. The final ranking is calculated according to the time it takes to get the acorns. Each hit is increased by 30 seconds. Everyone is allowed to be hit 5 times and eliminated directly more than 5 times. Of course, on the premise of completing the game. The top 3 today I will give them a reward. Teach the advanced mantra of the patron saint separately on the rest day. Now I ask a question. Who knows what the patron saint is used for? Hermione raised her hand in a habitual brush, and everyone else was half a beat. The long professor, like the king of horses in the Song of Ice and Fire TV series, touched Hermione's position and said, okay, it's you, the brown-haired exchange student from England. What is your name? Hermione Granger. Then Granger, please answer the question just now. The patron saint is generally used to defend against Dementors or Voldemort, and can also be used to communicate letters. When casting a spell, the wizard needs to concentrate on the happiest thing in the heart. The spell is Calling Guard. The wizard can guard a divine curse, summon his own patron saint, let the patron saint take the attack on his behalf, and launch to counterattack. Hermione replied confidently. I can't think of a more standard answer. Yes. The patron saint is a narrow but important spell. It should be noted that the black wizard cannot release this spell because they are subject to black magic. The negative impact of the lack of sufficient positive emotions. The need for emotional participation is an important feature of advanced curses. Speaking of which, the professor looked at the 3 exchange students in the classroom and said, finally, I would like to add that Britain has the largest group of Dementors in the world, but they strictly control the teaching of the patron saint. The reason is that the Ministry of Magic uses Dementors as one of its direct forces. But I think this is a very stupid behavior, because this kind of natural evil creatures are very untrustworthy. It is simply stupid to cooperate with them. Well, line up according to the first letter of the last name, and then go in one by one. Remember, whether it is completed or eliminated, it will be assembled in another designated classroom after the end, and it is not allowed to come back. Well, let us start now. As time went on, the classmates around Ryan became fewer and fewer. Hermione and Daphne had advanced, but because of obstacles, Ryan couldn't see what was going on inside, and didn't know if Hermione had succeeded. Finally, the professor remembered Ryan's name. As the whistle sounded, Ryan rushed into the classroom. As soon as he entered the classroom, Ryan noticed that the surroundings were suddenly quiet. It seems that these obstacles also have sound insulation effects. No wonder they didn't hear any sounds just now. Originally, Ryan planned to use the flying charm to attract the acorn, but he found that he didn't know what the acorn looked like, but had to give up. Although the road between the obstacles is tortuous, it does not diverge. After walking a few steps, Ryan turned right to a corner. The road ahead is still empty, but Ryan puts vigilance at the highest level. After all, there is only so much space here, and it is impossible to put so many roads so that students can easily pass through. Sure enough, just 2 steps later, Ryan saw 2 wooden sticks suddenly emerge from the obstacles next to him and hit him sideways. At this time, Ryan smashed the stick below with a crushing spell, and then the person leaned back, avoiding the stick above. At the beginning, the dismounted horse was quite powerful, and it seems that the road behind it may be more difficult. As expected, the road behind was getting more and more difficult. Ryan encountered a totem pole that fired fireballs, and would hit the tree with branches, flowers spraying strange pollen, and even a group of cupolas hiding behind obstacles and throwing stinky mushrooms at everyone passing by. Fortunately, the professor used a lot of animals and plants according to local conditions, so Ryan can predict most of the traps in advance through the joint investigation of nature and life magic. And all kinds of sudden attacks are not very difficult for Ryan, who has raided no less than 20 raiders on the wasteland. Finally, after Ryan exploded an obstacle with a smashing spell, he successfully approached the end and reached the end. At the end there was an acorn on a small stone platform. It's just different from ordinary acorns. www.mplnovel.com. This acorn is golden. Because some of the traps arranged by the previous professor were cluttered, Ryan took a bite this time, took her off his robe and rolled the acorn off the stone platform. As he expected, a mechanism was set up on the stone platform, and the acorn just left its place, and a tan liquid suddenly emerged from the stone platform. If this is taken carelessly, it is likely to be sprayed. After the liquid splashed, the stone platform slowly fell into the ground. A hidden door next to another classroom opened. The students who walked through the labyrinth are now in this classroom. Lane easily found two companions. After all, the two men in black robes in a pile of green robes were very conspicuous. However, the condition of the two girls did not look good. Daphne had a lot of green slime on her head, and Hermione's robe was beaten with colorful pollen. They were a little surprised to see Ryan's neat black robe. After questioning, Ryan realized that neither of them had successfully completed the whole process. Although Hermione improved a lot of physical strength by learning Ryan's exercise methods, Daphne mastered many special spells as pure blood. But because there is no experience with this approach to practical training, it is easy to be successfully attacked by the traps set in it. However, this does not mean that the two of them are very poor, because Ryan learned from the comments of other students around him that even after a full year of professional training, 2/3 of the students in the class still failed to complete the project. Listening to the students around me, the layout of this labyrinth will change every time it is practiced. The final exam requires everyone in this class to successfully pass this kind of maze. In this way, it is not unreasonable for Castro Bruce College to become the world's top magic school. Chapter 150, Courses and Weekends. After waiting for more than 40 minutes, as the last student who entered the maze entered the classroom because of a mud puddle, today's lesson is over. Papa the professor, who didn't know where, came in with applause. Hearing applause, all the little wizards blushed a little. After all, most people did not successfully pass this maze. Don't be so depressed, children. The first labyrinth test this year is actually super level, because there are some exchange students this year, so I took what should have been midterm to the present. But you are doing very well, and even 1/3 of the people completed the maze, which makes me very happy. Having said that, the students below showed a happy smile. But at this time, the professor remarked, the 3 students from Hogwarts who came to our class today have not received any similar training before. In this case, 2 students, even if they did not complete the maze, but he walked farther than half of our students, and the other student not only completed the maze, but also got a good 3rd place, especially when he exploded the obstacle with a smashing spell. Most of the classmates are more conscious of actual combat, so everyone should not be complacent because of today's performance. Under the education of the professor slap and give a date, the students seem to have gained a lot, and the flame of struggle is lit in their eyes. Finally, the professor announced the names of the top 3 and told them to go to his office after the curse of the patron saint when he had no class on Friday afternoon. Announce class directly. At this time, David and his cousin came over and patted Ryan on the shoulder and said, "Friend, I really don't see how powerful you are. How did you think of exploding obstacles directly?" Watching several students stare at themselves hoping for answers, Ryan quickly organized the language. It's very simple. The professor didn't say that he shouldn't damage the interior furnishings, so I will see where the obstacles are weak, and I will directly destroy the obstacles there to avoid the difficult traps. It's much easier to fight. Not to mention if I offended Kepler, maybe I won't be at peace after class. I didn't expect this, so I just used an armor curse to drill through Kepler's attack. It seems that your natural fighting consciousness is stronger. In this compliment, Ryan found Hermione standing on the side with a look of admiration. He couldn't help feeling ashamed, because all he said just now was made up. The real reason is that during the process of the Federal Wasteland banditry, when the enemy is hiding in the front of the building, the firepower is too strong to rush through. It has become a routine operation to bypass the side of the detour and break the wall. So in the labyrinth, Ryan also used to try to demolish the wall naturally. After a brief lunch, I went back to the carriage and took a shower. In the afternoon, they hurried to the classroom of the defamation class. The defamation course here is not much different from Hogwarts, and even the textbooks on both sides are similar. So this afternoon's metamorphosis class ended smoothly. The day ended quickly, and after completing their homework, all the exchange students and 2 professors of Hogwarts gathered in the common room, started to exchange analysis of Castro Brusio's various courses. The speech starts with a professor. The first speaker is Professor Bourne, who protects magical creatures. He spoke highly of the protection of magical creatures here. There are a lot of magical creatures here, and the types of students can reach far more than we have more schools. For example, I saw Barum today. They look like a giant jaguar, but they can be domesticated as a wizard's guard and have a certain effect of destroying magic. I took a look at them. The professor's lesson preparation materials are all such big guys with energy. Next is Professor Sprout, who also praised the greenhouses and plantations for the variety of plants here. At the same time, he praised the profound knowledge of the herbalists here. The experience of the students in the back is mixed, and the actual combat lessons are very popular, but the other courses are similar to Hogwarts, but have local characteristics in the content. For example, the defense class here is more inclined to curse and remove curses, rather than resembling the British against aggressive magic and defense against black magic creatures. In the potion class, the local raw materials are more preferred. However, in terms of teaching level, the teachers of several courses here are not as good as those of Hogwarts. The worst part is that although the professors are all taught in English, however, some Spanish vocabulary will be habitually added during the lecture. This raises the difficulty of comprehending the course to a higher level. Of course, facing the local characteristic teaching, the exchange students at Hogwarts are somewhat ugly after all. The professors are treated equally in the classroom, and the exchange students also have to complete their academic tasks. It is basically inevitable that they cannot achieve their goals because they are not adapted. But because everyone is the top student in school at school, plus the knowledge accumulated in Hogwarts learning, after adjusting the thinking, everyone can still keep up with the progress of the classroom. The discussion lasted for several hours until the two professors thought it was too late and asked everyone to go to bed. Although everyone has encountered all kinds of difficulties today, everyone as a representative of Hogwarts is full of fighting spirit. www.mplnovel.com. Their pride does not allow them to back down on this matter. In the following week, the exchange students at Hogwarts spent 120% of their energy, and finally managed to keep up with the speed of lectures in the overall course. Of course, everyone this week has also experienced the unique charm of Castro Bruce. In fact, all the wizarding schools in the world have their own two brushes, and as a school, except for some secrets, most of the valuable ones are public. It just depends on whether you have the kind of eyesight to discover the treasure. Unfortunately, most people do not have this kind of vision. For example, in the top 3 of Harry Potter, the students of those two schools have not been to the public restroom of Ravenclaw, and naturally have no access to the precious collections there. In fact, Ravenclaw's common room welcomes all seekers to enter, as long as they enter Hogwarts without being malicious. This is obviously not knowing treasure in Boshan. The treasure that Ryan found was the Emerald Dream here. Last time he entered the dream without being blocked, he thought he was hiding himself in the Emerald Dream by some means, and he was thankful. But when he looked back carefully the next day, he realized that the school projection he saw was equivalent to the field of the school, and such a field can be built in the Emerald Dream. Then the field is definitely not a place where he can hide. Think of it this way. The last time Ryan went in and out of here was acquiesced, otherwise he would have been forcibly driven away from there. So when the discussion ended on Monday, Ryan quickly returned to the bed to enter the Emerald Dream and tried to enter Castro Bruce's projection in the dream again to see if he could communicate with those inside to get instructions.